Hello, good afternoon. We are live.
Mm.
We're here. It's Sunday. Welcome to
Is
our
it
Sunday hangout, the hangout that I couldn't think of a clever name to attach today. So it's
so
just Sunday
lazy?
chat, So yeah, there you go. Welcome. We're here with Rasa. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I am in the name, which is quite pleasing. Thank you very much.
Yep,
But that's a bit
yep.
lazy, to be honest.
I mean,
Do you
I
want?
couldn't, I just didn't have the patience to come up with an actual
Uh,
clever name this time.
that's
Yeah,
why I stick to one now, and I'm really pleased with that one. And I am.
yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I don't have to, like just look for the number. What number we are at? That's actually quite
Yeah.
interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's Sunday. Yes, I can't believe it. We're
It's Sunday.
chatting.
Yeah, it's Sunday. I woke up to a very light dusting of snow. So it's the very
Oof,
first snow, and it's November 24th. So
oof.
that's really strange because we should
Yeah.
be a couple of feet under at this point. So it's a little bizarre to be the 24th of November and only now just snowing, because it snowed a little this morning too after I
Well,
got up. But it's since stopped, and it's just a very light dusting of snow out there. So very, very weird.
we woke up to an absolute miserable place. It's dark. It doesn't feel like it was morning, to be honest, and it's
Right.
windy. We are going through storm weather, which is the wind gusts were up to 60 miles per hour.
Oh boy.
So
Jesus.
my garden is being my bonsai. Some of my bonsai trees are dropped. I couldn't even go in there because the wind is just lash. I didn't want to experience that, to be honest. And
That's intense.
yeah, so some of my bonsai is already flying, and my greenhouse has been duct taped
Oh,
in order
really?
because I have poly something, I don't know what is it called, those sheets, the special sheets
Oh,
for
yeah, yeah.
using the greenhouse, which is kind of annoying, to be honest, because you're supposed to kind of silicone it to in order to attach to your frame, but because I don't live in here permanently, I don't really want to do that, because then ripping it apart would be absolutely havoc and crazy. I would like to have it in a glass form, but the glass is it's very pricey. Plus, I had a small
Mhm.
child, which I didn't want him to run into a greenhouse with, like you never know what kind of accidents that's gonna happen. So
Absolutely, yeah.
it has some points of, like, it's really nice, but it has downside where when it's stormy like weather like we had whole weekend, by the way,
Mhm.
it was like absolute downpour, like when you drive in the strong rain. This is what happened, basically, was lashing our front windows in each side of the house, and it's
Mhm.
just like a river, like it was pouring. I mean, the amount
Crazy.
of probably flooding around, because we get really flooded in this area where I live, because we have those like small roads, hilly kind of, there's hilltops which the water runs out into the main roads and just floods everything, and
Yep.
it's a constant problem. When you drive through, you usually can't pass it because there's just like new lake came out, like
Mhm.
you can't really use it. So there was quite a few things happening in the, like snow in the north. Apparently it was like quite crazy. But yeah, this storm bird which we had, which is kind of
Yeah, that's
unsettling. But it brought us, basically, we were freezing our ass off. We had -2 degrees at nighttime, which is quite a
mhm.
lot in here and quite early. And then suddenly this storm coming through, bringing 16 degrees plus.
Right.
So it's kind of like absolutely like
Yeah.
roller coasters weather-wise. Oh yeah.
I can see banner wars beginning here with that view in the background. LahRasa get building. Yes. Thank you very much. Hello, off my shelves. Welcome.
Excuse
Nice
me.
to see you.
I mean, I don't have that much. I don't know kind of things like that. That's just he's showing off, basically. I
Hello,
saw
hello,
it.
hello.
And by the way, this is such a distraction. So
Yeah.
you guys don't even need to watch me now. It's all about Mr. Crack now, see, because he has this plaque basically stating his
Yeah.
name without you realizing. You don't need his name anymore. There you go. It's there.
That's right. It's all subliminal messaging. I want you to think about crack
He's
from this
showing
moment
off.
forward, and Zellers.
Yeah, it was zealous, by the way.
Zellers was a store
Oh,
that I dearly miss,
oh,
and it doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately,
I agree,
and it's a shame.
Sleepy. I am subtle. I don't know. I don't have to be in your
Subtle.
face,
Yeah, there's
but
one thing you can say about Rasa. She's subtle. Yeah.
oh, shut up. I have my daredevil to kick your butt. Okay, so be watching.
Yeah. Right.
It's gonna come at you in the screen soon.
Yeah.
So I've been. Are you? First question I have: are you gonna watch a Gladiator 2? Are you
Fuck
a
to the no.
fan?
Why would I do that?
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I
So
don't really have interest. The first one was fine, but I don't have interest in seeing it. No.
I watched just recently actually today. Did I watch today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the Gladiator #1 today just
Yeah.
to remind myself. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought
Yeah. I
everybody
remember
had.
really liking it as well too. Yeah.
I liked all the casting, even though sometimes not all of them. But Joaquin Phoenix stole the show.
I mean, he's a great actor. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that. He's
So
fucking top tier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
comics. That's
Hello,
what.
Sean Riaz.
Yeah. So I really liked it. I absolutely loved watching it. So now I'm not sure if I am gonna go in cinema to watch it, to be honest, because it's not something like, I mean, I could honestly, but not something. If I don't stress about it. But I'm curious to see that 24 years later, how this comes out. Because at the end of the day, when the Gladiator came out and 2000s, it was a big deal. It was huge in cinemas. So I really wanted.
First one was good, but I'm the same. I have no interest in revisiting that world. If I want a Denzel film, I'll rewatch American Gangster again and again. Yeah, I know it. I haven't seen American Gangster, but I do know that one.
I like that new Irish blooded actor. I forgot his name already. So he's gonna be I don't know I think if I read it correctly, I'm not correcting me if wrong, but I think he's gonna do the role of the boy, the sister's child, I think. But I might be completely wrong. But he's a new blood kind of thing. Like it's interesting to see how can they be at doing something like as big what they like pushing it to be. It's not. It's never easy to come back after 24 years with a conclusion, I think, or something like that. But
Pedro Pascal is in it as well too.
Yes, and Pedro Pascal is the bad guy, which is fantastic as far as I know. Pedro Pascal is
Matt Lucas is in it. Jesus, that's odd.
Wow.
From Little Britain, that show Little Britain.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's in it. He's got he's down the list. He's the master of ceremonies is what his character is listed as. So, but yeah, I know him from Shooting Stars and Little Britain and stuff. So,
I don't know. I watched this, as I say, I watched this Gladiator just to remind myself, because honestly, after 24 years later, you're kind of like, did I watch it? Was I interested? But I watched it again, and I remembered everything, and I liked. As I say, Joaquin Phoenix is one of those actors where you remember him more when he starts. Just the minute you see his face, he's like, oh, bad guy, like a proper, like insecure, completely, like those eyes of his where he's like always teary, like he's always upset. He's like this small man syndrome kind of look to him. Actually, it did remind me like of that, the pictures of seasons of that. So I really like that part. But yeah, Denzel Washington. Go on.
My wife is currently really into Yellowstone. And she's hammering through Yellowstone, and I mean that's the thing that I joke about that is every single conversation just really quiet, and I'm gonna go down to the bathroom. I gotta take a big old shit. All right, then you go and do it. It's like the whole. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's really good from what I've seen of it. But that level of like everything is whispered and gruff, and it's looking like a beautiful day out today.
What is that Irish that young actor's name? You are watching on Google. I can clearly see. So who is that young dude we're talking about? The young Irishman in the Gladiator 2.
Oh, in the Gladiator 2. I don't know, Paul Mescal.
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah, so it's not a name that I know. I've never seen him before.
He's kind of like started to lift basically. This basically movie will make or break probably his Hollywood in a way. I think like when you get into that kind of roles. Yeah.
It was.
I
I
wa-
was. I was quoting. I could have written that episode.
I agree with your wife. I watched
It's
first
good.
3 seasons of it, and I got hooked to it, and I
Yeah.
started to kind of lose it because I know, like, there's lots of drama. I mean, it's quite attractive. I mean, everybody started after that Yellowstone. I think a lot of cowboy ghetto is quite popular, I presume, in
Yeah,
America.
because
Because
everybody thinks
and
they're
the
a
only
fucking
thing
tough
I
guy. That's
see,
why.
yeah, because the only thing I can see maybe is because the socials absolutely loves it, but because that
Yeah.
stuff with Kevin Costner's that he's leaving Yellowstone due to whatever he did in there, and then he wanted to make his own movie, who he's basically bombing that. But my mom watched the Kevin Costner's new movie, and she said I like it, but
Yeah.
she likes a lot of movies. She's like, I like it.
Yeah.
Why are you judging? She's like, you can, like, you don't have to be screaming ahead of just because it's not something you agree upon, but you still
Yeah.
can watch it. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So I like it.
Well, the interesting thing about it is because my wife is so into it, she just finished all the
Yeah.
episodes like this morning, kind of thing. She's now finished the whatever 5 seasons
Mhm.
or 5.5 seasons or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And one thing that she said, which was interesting to hear from her, she's like, the writing is just so good. This isn't a judgment call, but my wife likes some stuff that maybe I don't necessarily like,
Well, you
like
don't have to
that
like everything.
fucking, exactly right. You don't have to, but it's nice to hear her talk about something like this,
Yeah.
because hearing her talk about it, it's like, well, be prepared not to be able to go back to some of the stuff you've watched in the past, though. Like,
Yeah.
she's now appreciating, like, oh, like, this is so good. And then they did this. And then that's like, yeah, that's good writing. Not like a lot of the other shit. Like, and I said, once you get more shows where you have like actually good writing that draw you in,
Yeah.
the less patience you have for anything else, where it's like, just can't be bothered because it's just trope and, hey, we're going to do this and, hey, that'll be good enough to move the story here. It just gets really, you can see through it. So the one thing that I am hoping that it ends is what's that fucking horrible family's name that everybody loves with the big asses? Who the hell are the Kardashians?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's the first thing that fucking goes from her viewing, because fuck those people. I don't understand any of that world whatsoever.
I'm not interested in Kardashians whatsoever. I think
No.
I find that is
I
like
don't
waste of my
understand why
time.
anybody is, to be honest. I don't get it. But that's them. It's just my opinion.
But talking about Yellowstone, I actually prefer the 1926, 9, whatever, 8, whatever that year, with Harrison Ford. I think it's even better when Yellowstone, but people are up like, oh no, you can't, like, I like before time. That's even more crazy a time when you were cowboys and had to
We
deal
just
with
started
cattle
watching 1883. So it's 1883 is first, and then it's 1923 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We just finished watching the first episode of 1883, and it's amazing.
Both of them.
That's I think I would like that more than like, I like Yellowstone. The stuff that I've seen is great. That main actress there is such a hot mess. Like, she's fucking a phenomenal actress.
And she scares
English. The shit out of me. She scares the hell out of me because I've known women like that in real life. Fucking amazingly gorgeous, but dangerous as hell, and cuckoo bananas. But this 1883 looks really, really good. That first episode was very cool. So I think I'll probably get more into that stuff than the Yellowstone.
I absolutely love the old stuff. I find it even better because there's more kind of like, it's less new day problem, but more like whatever happened that time, which is still, because you haven't lived in that times. I don't think I would like to live in those times anyway.
It would be an awful time to be alive.
But it's fascinating how they had to deal with the situations like lands and who was like owning it, and all that, like, American dream was still alive, so alive for everyone and stuff like that. So it's kind of fascinating. And yes, the female actress from Yellowstone, the sister or whatever, or the daughter, she's in English, and I keep on forgetting. I was like, I know I watched TV show in England and with her English accent, and you're like, you watch that and you're like, completely forget that she's English, but
she's so badass, man. It's crazy. Such a good actress.
And then you watch her interviews and you're like, oh yeah, I remember you being, because I watched Detective Show with her, and I really
the True Detective, or
I'm not sure. No, it's one of those other copper shows Britain's British TV has producing quite a lot of.
Yeah.
Don't think that.
They could read some Tintin. This boy and his dog.
Yeah.
They'd read it just like that.
Or Lucky Luke, man. Come on, Lucky Luke. Have
Yeah,
you
Lucky
heard of
Luke.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, talking about TV shows, The Day of a Jackal. Have you heard it?
Nope.
So there's a movie, of course, beforehand. There's a book, I guess, based on that, and also what about? I've never watched a movie from the 70s. I think it's originally produced, but it's a fascinating tale about like based on true, but loosely based on true
Right.
facts about the assassin guy who was able to murder lots of people with very innovating ways. So there's a TV show, The Day of a Jackal is called. And there's a couple of course, all British based, so British actors and stuff like that. But we're going to be 10 episodes. We watched 6 of them, or 7, and they're fascinating. It's really good, well made, well told. It's actually quite interesting. They use 3D printers to make a sniper rifles. The guy shooting one of the German, like he assassinated a German guy, which he managed to use to shoot him from 3,000 kilometers away. So it's like, I don't know how many miles in that. Sorry, I don't know miles that much, even though I live in UK. But
hold on a second. Say that again.
3,000 kilometers away.
With what? What did he shoot him with?
Sniper rifle, custom made sniper rifle.
No, there's no fucking way. You got to be wrong about that. 3,000 kilometers away.
Yeah.
3,000. 3,000.
Yes. That's the
what?
One. Yeah. Well, I say loosely based. I don't sure if that person actually done that kind of thing, but they even couldn't believe it because the guy was, those like extra long, like point, whatever. I'm not a gun expert. I'm just
I know.
TV shows.
I'm looking at a link here, and it says the longest recorded sniper kill was made by somebody, security service of Ukraine in November 2023, and the distance was 3,800 meters. So 2.36 miles, 3,000 miles, 3,000 kilometers. No fucking way, man. There's no way.
Maybe meters. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah,
maybe I'm not actually
right. It can't possibly be kilometers. That would be intense.
I'm not gonna quote. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, there's a 90s one. Yes, Bruce Willis was there. My husband actually mentioned it. But before Bruce Willis, there was another movie. Based on that in the 70s, which I actually wanted to check out if I can, dug it out somewhere from the internet and watch that, because honestly, very well made espionage kind of type of a tale. He's using disguises as well, so he's very good at that. So that's why he's called a jackal, because jackal apparently is the creature which can basically manipulate himself to a point where you can't really know where he's actually at, and he strike when he wants to. So I guess that's why he got a name on that. So really good. There's this guy from the one of the Harry Potter franchises. What is those wizards before Harry Potter happened, the movies? And the main guy was... Yeah, anyway, so I think Redmayne or something is surname. So the surname of the guy, I'm sorry. Like I say, I don't know the names. But I highly recommend, if you like sniper or assassinations or those kind of like movie type or TV show based stuff, it's really well made. And it's fast because they're dealing with MI6 as well, because they are trying to get hold of him. But how he's dealing with how he gets the payments through. He's just fascinating, looks really well made, and it's like intense. So you're like, oh my god, so what's gonna happen, and how is he using for his own advantages the guns he's approaching, and what his qualifications and stuff, which is they don't disclose it really quickly, so it makes you kind of guess and makes you want to watch the next episode to see what's happening. And also they just came out with it, and they already gonna make season 2, so it means it's quite popular. So if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, cool.
Because I like those kind of type of TV shows anyway. It's right in my alley. And you?
Do you want to start us off with something? What did you read?
So you haven't watched anything, then you're done with that?
I haven't. No, I really haven't. I'm trying to think. I haven't really seen anything worth
Yeah.
note. I just don't watch a lot of stuff. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. We don't want to talk about politics here, so
Oh, please don't.
we'll pass on that one.
I'm tired of it already, even though I don't watch it and my husband watches a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He watched like so much orange guy. It's became orange everywhere, to be honest, for me. So I drew this picture. If people haven't watched
Hold
it,
on a sec. I
my
saw that on the Instagram. Yeah, the shade.
Shade the
That's
Changing
awesome.
Man.
Yeah.
So I read this issue, which I basically used it from. I didn't really have that much action scenes because my purpose now is to draw more action-based things, rather like more moving panels than me having just like still motion. Because I'm trying to, in a way, challenge myself. So, but this one, I'm trying to look for that panel. But I'm talking about this issue 6 of
What
Change.
issue 6? Okay, yeah.
Shade the Changing
Yeah, look
Man.
at that cover. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good. I mean, I watch lots of YouTube as well, but I haven't been well for past couple of weeks. I've been drowning my sorrows in the television screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things I enjoy about getting sick. You have a perfect excuse to lay around and do fuck all. It's pretty great.
That's the panel I was looking.
Oh yeah, nice.
Okay. So it doesn't look bad. I think I didn't do bad justice to that one.
I mean, I'm a little biased. I think all your drawings are pretty fucking incredible, especially seeing them on the page. Like, I love the videos that you do because they're so. It's so nice to see like the time lapse, to see like it's mind blowing. Some of them like as if there's nothing on the page and you're fucking laying it out, like, because I find it interesting what you choose to start with and where you move to, and I think it's amazing. Yeah, so
that's the whole point for me. That's his previous one, the Usagi Jimbo.
I love that one too. Yeah, I think I sent you a message about that one.
This one is really, for the first time, I actually nailed the lines for the those simplistic lines, which is absolutely bothers me to a point of no return. It's very difficult for me because I don't use. So basically, I start with a very plain canvas, like you can clearly see. There's nothing on the paper, and I use my Kavico Sport fountain pen to draw it. So it's sometimes comes out, sometimes it doesn't. But like it is quite nerve-wracking to a point. But when I relax, I tend to get that really well. I think, or at least I'm enjoying myself. This issue, it actually quite confused me the hell out of me because they are in the search for this thing, which is basically why Shade the Changing Man is out and about, which controls basically controls people, and there's lots of bad things happen, and it's based in Hollywood, but because what's happening around the storyline, it's kind of confused me because there's lots of there's movie scenes and they talking about those in the panels, and then we have the two characters which we follow them, and in this specific issue we have they be looking for camera because in Hollywood while they're thinking it's interesting to understand how we come about this fascinating thing. So use your powers, and they basically jumping from one point to another one, and they became a poster, which hangs on the wall. So it's quite trippy kind of issue of this. This douche, I don't know if he was the one who kind of was in charge or not, but I found it that I enjoyed reading this issue, but I wasn't understanding clearly what's really happening surrounding it. I mean, I was understanding what the purpose of it is, what the changing man is doing, and now that she is part of it with him, and even though she clearly sees the killer's face, she still like basically they became like a couple. And this is the main guy, the bad guy of all the story, isn't it? He's the one who's basically manipulating all these people doing this ghastly things. For the first time, I realized they used the picture for the background. You can clearly kind of see. What do you think, Terence? You agree?
Oh yeah, Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this issue reading it, but this part of it was quite fascinating. How she was basically sat down and basically manipulates her brain to a point where she's kind of wants to give in, and then he comes in and saves the day, but she is still kind of like she doesn't understand where she's at and what's going on surrounding her. And also now she's kind of have this idea of he's gonna change. Well, no, not change, but he's gonna help her to talk to her parents, because as we clearly know from the previous issues, her parents got mutilated basically by this killer. She's basically on the run with, even though it's not the guy. The change man is taking his body, but now because he has the jacket and he's supposed to get these powers, she thinks that he's also going to help her to deal with that kind of like loss. Maybe she wants some answers from her parents and stuff like that. And then this is one of the best panels of the issue, even though it's not really that much. The wave is the action scene, but it was such a big thing. And if I would want to draw it in that little box, for example, I wouldn't be able to space it, and it wouldn't have the same grandeur effect on a small panel for me to use this. This needs to be on the poster board, basically.
Yeah,
what I'm
right.
trying to say. So it's, as I say, I'm still very fascinated with storyline. As I say, some of them doesn't click with me as well as others. Like we always have those kind of issues, but it's trippy. It's very trippy. It's not no wonder that Peter Milligan's writing is sometimes it has lots of to say, but sometimes making you don't understand what's happening surrounding you, because even the characters themselves don't understand where they're at and what's happening with them, and how they keep on jumping in order to find the solution to why the change man is in first place there. So yeah, but it's getting better, but this is kind of like issue where, as I say, I found it quite difficult to grasp the whole point.
It gets better. I think some of those early, like looking back on it, some of those early stories are very much of the time. Like Of the Time was this fascination with serial killers. Of the Time was this like the America is a monster kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's one of those series that I'd say like just stick with it. Because from my memory, because I don't remember specific issues, I just remember it gets better and better and better the longer it goes, like the further you go with it. So
I like the coloring. Sean mentions the coloring, the layouts of this. I find that's what makes me happy about reading this in the first place. It doesn't have that element where you always saw it. Especially this kind of expressions, I really absolutely adore. And he was like on the TV, and then suddenly he's a real person asking questions. Then this group of people got involved, and they were all of them in Hollywood as well. So they all, like, one dejected actress, and number one a nun who is basically doing something bad, and this creep, which I don't understand, he was a good guy or bad guy. Still, after reading this issue, I don't understand. I couldn't clearly make in my mind to understand what his purpose was in this, because he kind of felt like being a narrator. It doesn't say who. I can't find the people in charge. I would like to know who, because they say who is the colorist in this issues prior, but I don't seem to have. I'm not doing a really good job today on finding information. I can't find it anyway. But Mark Pennington, I think, is the colorist, to be honest, or Red Letterer. But Chris Bachalo's art is improving since issue 1. So not improving, but just has more, like craziness. What lends to this book even more. You need that kind of artist who's not afraid to play with panels and make it more crazy for you too.
Right. Yeah, he's committing more at this point, probably.
Yeah, I think it seems to be, because I think I remember reading the letters page. We don't have in this issue, but previous one they had, and they were saying that they were having they're selling out, and people are very excited about this series in general. So yeah, change your mind. Still on
I mean,
DC
that's got to be a thing early
level.
on, right? Like when you're trying to throw shit at the wall to see what's going to happen,
Yeah.
like there's got to be a level of get a couple of issues out, and you
Yeah.
don't, the artist stuff maybe at that time or maybe still now, they don't give it their all. And then all of a sudden there's, oh no, this is going to be a hit. This is selling out. And then all of a sudden it kind of helps focus you, okay, this is going to be my job for a while. So
Yeah.
I better get used to it and I better enjoy these characters.
I think I saw an interview with Peter Milligan, and he was talking about this series. It's basically what basically plastered him on the map for all of them, basically giving him even Batman's and all the other things he was trying to draw. I mean, to write a lot of books after this. And he said that he was contracted for 6 issues for this. But then the popularity hit quite well, and then that's why it became an ongoing series. So they have been able to continue. And Chris Batchelor in that time was saying that he was like excited because he's like can continue working on stuff like that, without looking for another job, I presume, in that time.
Yeah.
So it
well,
was
and then
nice.
Milligan started writing a ton of Vertigo stuff.
Oh, yeah,
then it's
everything.
like his name all of a sudden was everywhere. Yeah,
Well,
even I remember that from the time.
he got Batman because of this.
Yeah.
Apparently, he said he was writing quite a few issues Batman in that time, which is not everybody gets handled to draw or to write Batman in generally. So so he gained the popularity because of those series.
That's very cool. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, it's just so good. I'm curious to see how it goes. The further you get into it, I'll be curious to hear.
Well, the thing is, I know I have now a huge gap, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
But you told, well, while we were speaking on this, one of these lives, somebody said that they are coming out with omnibuses, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so there's going to be a collection of it as well too.
So
that's one I might end up double dipping on. I might end up getting that as well too.
Because that's what I'm thinking. I might want to do it because like that would be basically giving me quite a huge chunk, especially of the beginning stuff, which I don't. Apparently, I have first 10 issues for sure. I know that, and then afterwards it becomes like a sparing, like 1, and then 15 or 17, and then it drops to like 30 or something. So, yeah, I agree with Sean.
Yeah. I don't remember if you were here. We were talking about that. So glad Vertigo is going to be a thing again. I'm skeptical because Vertigo, it's whatever they come up with, it's not going to be like it was. It's just impossible. That was very much its own time period that had such an impact on comics. Now there's so many independents. I'd be curious to see what they're going to do. I'm hopeful that it's really good. Don't get me wrong, but I just think the landscape is so much different. Is it really worth bringing Vertigo back? Are you, like, again, when it comes to stuff like this, I always feel like for the old guys like me who love that era, because again, I got drawers filled with Vertigo stuff. I fucking grew up on that era. I love it. Trying to get us back in and get some of our money because maybe they see it falling off. But I just don't know if it's a landscape that's necessary for Vertigo. But again, I'm quite happy to be proven wrong. If I eat my words, that's fine by me.
Look, if it's gonna be you wrong and we're gonna do really well, it's great for us as readers.
Yeah, totally.
But it's no surprise that we are skeptical about it because there's so much competition going on now. It's ridiculous. It's not the same anymore. Like it's not. There's so much independence. There's so many people coming out with for the thing. So if Vertigo can somehow find. First of all, I think you need to people behind it, like they were having Karen Berger, who was basically a person who invited all of them to come through and do whatever they kind of wanted to be.
Exactly. If it wasn't for her, Vertigo wouldn't have been what it was. I mean, it would have been something else. It's not like it would have not necessarily happened on its own, but I mean, she was the driving force, right? So she was the person involved. So yeah.
Your turn.
So sticking with Vertigo, so there's an there's a New York Comic Symposium that has like meetings and they talk to cartoonists, and these cartoonists will give a talk or they'll do an interview. I haven't watched it yet. I think it's with somebody that was associated with, well, I know that it was somebody that was associated with this book, this 7 Miles a Second. And I think it was the colorist, Marguerite Van Cook, I believe, is who they talked to. I haven't watched it yet, but Austin English from Domino Comics is one of the people that organizes this event, and they've had all sorts of incredible cartoonists come through. So I'm going to go back and watch it for sure. But it got me thinking, hey, I have that book, and it's one of those that I bought a long time ago and didn't ever sit and read. And I'm so glad, like, again, part of the beauty of some of this stuff is getting reminded of some of these things. This was a hell of a story. So it was written by a guy named David Wojnarowicz. He died. He was an artist. He was a writer, performance artist, musician. He had AIDS. He was from like a very young age. Like, he was sexually abused. He was on the streets at kind of like 12 years old, selling his body for sex. He got heavy into drugs. He had quite a life. So these are 3 stories that are written by David, and then the artist is James Romberger and his wife Marguerite Van Cook. Digital Chameleon Separators, Digital Chameleon Winnipeg-based company. So 3 short stories that they were working on while he was alive, and they never finished it. And then he passed away, and apparently the colorist and the artist and his wife sat, and she does like tarot card readings, and apparently they were communicating with David, and David's message to them was, finish the fucking book. So he finished the final story, and then they put it out. I think this was something that was self-published at first and then made its way to Vertigo, and they put it under the Vertigo Verite because it's real life. It's, it's a true story. It's a harrowing fucking story, man. Like, the 3 stories. So the first one is when he's about 12 years old, and the first one is when they show him getting picked up by an older guy, and this guy's having a conversation about his life and saying how beautiful his kids are, and we're gonna rent this hotel. I want you to look through the crack in that door there, get your clothes off. And they kind of, he ends up kneeling in front of the boy, basically. So it's very extremely graphic, because one of the things that scares the boy is the prostitute in the other room moves away, and she's got these scars on herself. So there's this real sense throughout the whole book, this kind of relating yourself and this physical kind of container that we're in, and kind of moving past that. Because the second story is him and a friend of his. So he's now 18, 19 years old, and they're kind of street hustlers. They're sick. They're doing drugs. They're looking at now robbing people as opposed to turning tricks. And they're sick, basically. And it's just as kind of dark and gritty, really amazing storytelling. So the final story is all excerpts from David's journals that James was going through after he passed away. So there's a lot of text, and this is where it really kind of puts everything in place as far as him as a writer, because this is really somebody that's coming to the end of their life, knowing that it's coming any day soon, and kind of dealing with a lot of things of that feeling separate, feeling yourself separating from the world around you to an even bigger degree than maybe he was feeling throughout his life. So very, very text heavy, but worth your time. Sometimes this sort of stuff can turn people off, but I would say that this is a real good cap to this single issue. So as far as I know, this was the only comics work that David did. I don't know how much James has done, but he has done some comics. He came more from kind of a sculpture and a fine arts background. I don't think comics was like his chosen medium, but this is a hell of a book, and it's one that I've seen out there in the cheap bins, because that's where I got mine. I probably paid $1 or $2 for it, So this is one of those, when we talk about scouring those bins, if you're lucky enough to have a city with comic shops, it's worth picking up anything Vertigo in general, I say, my personal opinion, but it's just worth trying out a whole bunch of stuff in those boxes, because there are these gems that have just gotten lost to time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the interview. I'll try to remember to put a link in this chat afterwards for that symposium talk, because they do get archived on YouTube. So check the description and you can go and watch that interview. But yeah, a really great read overall. As dark as it was a great read.
How do you find after reading stories like that? Does it make you a little think twice or three times about humanity in generally, or it doesn't
I
bother
mean,
you?
I think 2 or 3 times about humanity, even just waking up in the morning. Like I have a bit of a dark sensibility. I love, like, my wife was asking me this story, and I just said to her, I said, well, because she said, what do you get out of reading something like that? I'm like, well, what are you getting out of watching Yellowstone? Those aren't exactly admirable people doing the really best that they can. Like, they're damaged people. There's something fascinating. And the thing that I said to her is the thing we've all talked about. I mean, there's something about book writing, like prose writing and comics writing, that's so much different than TV or movies. Is
Mm-hmm.
you're getting some, like, for me personally, part of like the enjoyment of reading is getting ideas from another human being. None of us can see through each other's eyes. Each of us sees the world differently based on our experiences. Those stories are sometimes the only the very rare opportunity where you get one human being putting ideas down on a page to transfer it to one other human being. There's not 50 people's hands in it. Obviously, with this one, there's an artist and there's a colorist. So there's 3 people. Whereas a movie, it's hundreds of people that are telling a story. I like the idea of a story coming from somebody's brain right to mine, potentially. And I've always liked, who wants to see perfect characters all the time? Like, that's why I don't read superhero books. It's fucking boring after a while. I can't relate to that. It's nice to have that stuff every once in a while, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather read stories about real human beings and people going through real struggles, and just kind of what their outlook is on the world, than see something that's really light and fluffy. I understand having those, and it's not like I don't read those things. I mean, I buy all the Firefly books, for God's sakes. It's not like those are really hard-hitting stories. Those are fluff, but I love it. But I prefer stuff like this. So
What?
you should read the dialogue in comics, like the dialogue in Yellowstone. Yeah, that's how I was talking to my daughter last night. I kept talking to her like that. It was driving her nuts. She's like, would you stop? I'm like, I can't. I'm afraid. I just can't. Anyway, you were going to say, sorry.
Your Firefly got not gonna be published anymore from Boom.
Oh, is it going somewhere else?
Boom lost licenses to Firefly and Buffy Vampire Slayer, which is actually
Oh,
quite
okay. Yeah.
fascinating, because I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer was Boom's like money pit kind of thing, because the minute you produced thing, apparently it was popular. Maybe they weren't popular anymore, because
Right.
the problem I always found, like, for example, as a fan for myself, like I watched, yeah, they didn't renew their contract. I don't think they lost it, but I don't think they renewed the contract. Or at least that's what I've read. It's because they've mentioned both Firefly and Vampire. So Buffy Vampire Slayer I grew up with. I watched TV shows, and I was like, when I was starting into comic books, I saw this huge popularity of reading comic books, especially because it continued the storyline, blah blah blah. But they don't have in stock or in print all collected issues what came out. They are very like whales of the whale, and it's very difficult to get hold of it. And now the new kind of new number ones, I was never interested, because I still wanted to know what happened when the TV show has finished, and they apparently have done some stories which would be very interesting to me.
Yeah, they kind of continued the seasons into
Yeah,
comics, from what I understand, early on with Buffy.
exactly. So in that sense, Firefly, I don't know what's happened and why. But yeah, I just read that they have
Might have just
not.
been part of the same deal, since that
Yeah,
was Joss Whedon as well too. Maybe they were
yeah,
part and parcel with each other to some degree.
maybe.
So
Or
yeah,
maybe somebody wants to do something with those franchises to a
yeah, that could be
degree
as well.
where
Totally.
Boom can't really do it. So you never
Hmm.
know. Let's see. But I just wanted to mention that because I know you read your Fireflies, and you are because
I love
I
my
bet
Firefly.
exactly. So I thought I'll mention so you'll be
It's
well
one of my
aware.
absolute favorites.
The very cheap thing I'm reading,
Oh yeah.
which is still such a nice feel to have this on the pulpit just due to the price. So we concluded the storyline of this Twitch going into Indiana, I think. So it took them 8 issues to tell the storyline, even though this last issue with the supposed conclusion, this still gave me quite lots of question marks, because they didn't really explain to us this detective's fascination with Twitch and why he wanted him to be part of this investigation in the first place. Because what we found out, these killings with mutilated bodies, for number of them, were part of a person who basically felt like that he needed to do these killings in order to not kind of like justified themselves killing them in order to be, because whatever somebody spoken into their brain. And it was very good from the get-go, but they left out quite a lot of integral parts of the story to make it round it up even more and be more excited about it. Because this issue felt a bit more rushed. We don't really understand, because we have corrupt cops, and basically that's where it all kicked off. Because of corruption in a small town has escalated to a point where somebody had to do something about it, and their way of dealing with it, killing, becomes serial killer. And in order those corrupt cops kind of things to get to kind of like their conclusions, they decided to invite Twitch. And that's where confusing part is, why he's there and why the main guy who's in charge of investigations is absolutely fascinated by Twitch and his abilities to do detective work. It has never been explained to us. So where this issue comes into, now we haven't seen the killer. We're gonna show us the killer, but they didn't really give him enough limelight to kind of make it more round of a storyline. If you have any of detective stories, you need to have the beginning, the middle, at the end. Kind of, we got the beginning really well established. The middle was sort of like jumpy, but the end was where kind of we lacked information in order to kind of fully commit to the storyline. It does help that this comic book in general is very cheap in my pull list to hold it, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. To see how the dynamic between Sam and Twitch was, that they didn't get along. Now Sam is coming to find the Twitch because he can't get hold of him, and Twitch is becoming in the middle of this, and he basically got to be blamed for some of the murders of the coppers, while this kind of confrontation between Twitch and all other detective guys involved in this case came about. And the way Twitch reacted to it was kind of really not really sensitive enough for being as an experienced detective as he is, or what they're supposed to be like. He was going guns blazing, blaming them all. Like he was in this barn between 5 cops and himself, and basically he's attacking them and accusing them of being corrupt, and this is because of you guys. And he actually thought that they are one of them are the killers, and they just trying to disguise something. But then we found out that there's this dude who basically end up having to be insane, and the way he dealt with it is like, as I say, become serial killer. So it's intriguing. Honestly, I don't have much more to say. I think it would be interesting to know if somebody reads this collected and what they thought from the beginning, and because I had quite a gap between the issues, and it kind of like some of the stories I kind of forget. But I didn't dislike it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like there would be more potential to round it up. The storyline becomes more intriguing and actually being more able to recommend to people to go and check it out. If you're into Spawn universe, maybe that would be something for yours. No, I'm not my favorite thing. I got used to this, but I found it quite kind of disjointed at the beginning, because it's not something you always see in a comic book page. I kind of like that its own ways of that speech bubble, how it is. I think it's less distracting. Sometimes you can't you can miss it. It depends in which ways and what color the lettering they chose to have. But in generally, I find that, as I say, I'm so used to it now. I'm okay with it. I actually find this art even more fascinating. I think he actually has played more with paneling than what it was before. It was kind of like really safe play at the beginning, but now he seems to initiate. He is more easy to use something more distinctive ways of using the panels to maybe to help or lend to tell the storyline. But the writing wasn't flawless, so I could basically judge by that. But honestly, 8 issues in, I wherever it's gonna go, I'm gonna continue. Actually thinking, how do I get into another Spawn book, because it's very cheap.
Mhm.
And having a the whole pound or £1.50 cheaper than any comic book you have, it really does let you just have it in the pullets, and you're not even thinking about too much, or like judge it too much about it. But it's detective. I like detectives. I like the way it's been so far, and I think it's really easy for people who don't know Salmon Twitch to get into this, because it basically shows you the dynamic between two guys who's actually been working in New York for a very long time. But now one guy, they don't get along. There's a lot of things happening between them, but one goes away into some little area to solve a murder, and ends up a bit more what he wanted to have. So it's actually not bad. But as I say, it could be better. Like really, you could have, because the way they were introducing the murders was fascinating. They had they really used their time, and it felt like, okay, so they're gonna like slowly introduce you to or show you the character who's supposed to be a murderer, but you wouldn't be aware of it because he's just in the background, like what the really good storytelling is. But in here they just blabbed it out, kind of thing. Like the coppers became the main storyline, not the actual serial killer. And he's the way he's wants to deal with this corruptions in this little town. He, like the person who's actually basically trying to teach them a lesson, it didn't really made much of like, oh, I mean, you're absolutely insane. That's the only solution to his madness. He's told because a voice told me to do that, kind of thing.
I always preferred medieval Spawn to regular Spawn, but now I'm a little uneasy reading anything Neil Gaiman related. Well, that's unfortunate. But yeah, I remember reading medieval Spawn. I remember really liking Hell Spawn. So when I got back into kind of buying comics around 2000-ish, I remember reading that Salmon Twitch. I remember reading a ton of Spawn stuff, but the stuff I really liked was Salmon Twitch and Hell Spawn. Medieval Spawn was fun. I didn't get into it as much. The regular Spawn title, honestly, even then, like I read a whole bunch of it. It never really did too much for me. The offshoots I found, and Salmon Twitch was honestly kind of a highlight. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. To tell to Harlem House, it's Todd McFarlane and John Goff is the writers. So one script and plot and a co-plotter, and then art by Szymon Kudracki, probably Polish relating. But yeah, it's the Todd is always there, but I think it's because it's his Spawn universe. I don't know how much he does, but I think it's mainly written by John.
Yeah, right.
Goff.
Maybe just gives an outline or something. Hey.
Yeah, maybe it just wants to make sure that they kind of like be true to what characters they were. The Salmon Twitch of 90s, like you say, the Bendis writing, everybody's raving about that. I think I started collecting it, but never I don't know how many issues there it was, but I remember when I started collecting this, the Salmon Twitch always was in my line of sight because of that kind of thing, to collect and see what they were. But
I had them. They followed me around for a long time. It was only within the past kind of 5 years or so that I finally got rid of them, like traded them away just to make some space, right? But that series traveled with me quite a while.
And as I say, this series is and price is also something I kind of like want to see more. Maybe then they come out with it, because they did come out with another title, which I don't remember the name of, and I didn't pick it up because I wasn't really sure how much I want to invest in this time. But and for me, Spawn has always been more animated, because I have not read comic books prior. So everything, whatever history of Dark Horse current.
And that animated show was goddamn good, man.
Yeah, and the animated show is always and action figures. I found every single action figure of Spawn is absolutely fascinating. It looks spotless, to be honest. I mean, it took so much care to develop anything, whatever the Spawn looked and stuff like that. So I really like that part of it. But I was never into reading it. Oh.
I was
Oh,
looking into new McFarlane toys when I was at the comic shop the other day,
yeah,
just because I always browse the toy shelf, always,
very
and
bad.
then I catch myself and walk away as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, like the level, I mean, the toys in general, they've really grown up, and I think
Yeah.
Todd is single handedly responsible for that because he knocked everybody's dicks in the dirt when his toys started coming out, and they saw the detail, so they had to up
Yeah.
their game.
Yeah.
But that said, though, the stuff that's currently coming out with the under the Todd McFarlane banner
Mm.
still looks so goddamn good. Like the sculpts are really just incredible.
Mm.
The beautiful, beautiful work. But like I said, there's so many toys now. They're
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah.
Makes no sense that the Spawn show was great and the comics weren't, but it was. Yeah, I mean, the show was so well done. I think they really captured something for it. I mean, but it was also the time period too, right? Like the
Yeah.
Max and
MTV.
those more like adult comics, sorry, those adult animated shows that were coming out. It
Yeah.
was a real kind of, it was a good it was the perfect moment for it. It was a great story. It was done dark. Yeah, I remember loving it. It was a great show, man. That and the Max we were
Mm.
huge fans of that, and a ton of other animation, but those ones really stood out for sure.
That's what basically made my husband read comic books because of the
Mm,
Max and Spawn. He said the Max kicked like the Max was his number one go-to thing to read
yeah,
because he absolutely loved the TV show. And he grew up with that, and then what still led
yeah,
him to go back into comic books and reading more. But he's never been like a consistent reader of the comic books. But he knew like he read more in childhood than I, for example, did growing up. For me, the availability maybe was less because I had more of those Donald Duck Disney stuff. I grew up with Donald Duck
mm,
comic reader. Now
mhm.
to this day, it's quite plentiful available in Lithuania, but it's quite under, like, price wise it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, now these days for kids to buy comic is ridiculous price, just to think of it, like just
Mhm.
if your kid would have had or ability even just to have enough money for them to actually go to comic book shop and just go, have it the comic.
I mean, I don't. If anybody, for some reason, in here or whoever
Yeah.
watches this in the future, if you
Yeah.
haven't seen the Max, like, do yourself a favor. It was the other thing was I think that at that time, and it could maybe be argued now as well too. It was just such an unusual series. It was unusual storytelling. It was no Siri, I'm not talking to you. Go away. It was an unusual series,
Yeah.
not the other word. Um, I think that, and it was also just an unusual story. It was
Yeah.
it's a dark story to some degree, right? But the way it was told and the characters, and I don't know, there was something very, very unique about it. I haven't watched it in a long ass
Me
time,
too.
but I loved it when it was coming out.
I probably could
One of the
watch it.
ones that we'd set the tape for, set the VCR for, you know.
Oh yeah, I did many times of those kind of like comic based cartoons. I never were able to miss, and I was like shushing everybody around me. I used to
Mhm.
fight with my parents to get that slot because that's what's coming out, and I was like, no,
That's when it's on.
MTV's
Yeah,
on.
right.
MTV's on. I just need it. You just like you
Yeah,
cannot. And he's like, where is that? Like my dad used to like, I need news. I was like, oh no! And I used to scream my head off. I remember I used to be so much trouble just for doing that. But then I think they gave in to a point. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Liquid. Yeah, 94. Yeah, it was
yeah.
beautiful time. When it came cartoons wise.
I mean, as much as the '90s had a lot of shit that happened,
Oh
there was
yeah,
some really good stuff that happened in the '90s too, right? Like
yeah.
there was some good shit that was going on.
Okay, your turn.
Did you get and read this?
Oh, so we starting here. So next things
You did read it?
we have all the pull lists. Okay, I have a major like Tom King issue, like I always do,
Okay.
and this is
Yeah.
no. It's like what the so what's the point? Because
Okay.
basically he's telling us our main character. I'm saying maybe I'm going on a tangent from the get go, but
Mhm.
so she doesn't exist, or does she exist? Is she a comic book, or is she not comic book? Is she just people's folk tale? Because
Mhm.
why not? She supposedly experienced it, and now the way like because of those stands, like that new age where she has been doing this governess has been getting interviewed, and then we realize that she's dead now, so there's this information is missing sort of thing. But then you see this kid finding it in some guy selling him in Comic-Con for him, and there's some information, but then his mom is gonna like get rid of it once again, and you're like, oh, so what is it? Because I loved it because it's quite chunky. For first of all, it was one
Yeah.
of the
Every
most
single issue has been pretty chunky. Yeah.
yeah, and there was quite a lot of information in here. He didn't pull the punches when it comes to the speech bubbles and stuff, and I enjoyed what I read. But the conclusion, I don't know, in my books, I don't think Tom
Yeah.
King knows how to end it well.
Okay. Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Yeah. No, of
Maybe
course it is. Yeah.
it has
Absolutely. Yeah.
never had been whatever I read from Tom King that I fully rounded the story, like where it was completely to an end from the beginning till the end, completely satisfied. This book, if he didn't have Bilquis Evely, I don't think this book would be as good in my books as what it is because of her art. The panel usage, the amount of detail she can place in everything, the imagination that like she would be perfect for Conan the Barbarian. To be honest, I think she would really do well in comic book of that kind of caliber. Let's say I think she can even do more than whatever I'm saying. But just because this book is kind of similar to that end. But when I finished this reading, so I was like, what is this? Fairy tale, basically. It's not true. This book is basically a book what they reading, because that C.K. Cole surrounding mystery really didn't really got to be a mystery, because the way he ended it is saying, oh, it's just a comic book. It's just for kids to read and broaden their horizon. That's what I got from it.
Right.
I just felt like you can do more because you established so much, and the mystery with her grandmother wasn't really told to us. The way he tried to explain himself in this book about his grandmother and her background surrounding her, he actually gave us a little bit more pointers of what she could have been and what her abilities are. Like when she went into the water and she's like, I never can do it. A mystery about her dad is even more, you can tell, because he hasn't yet established that and not ever even given to us. The only what recall the girl Helena Winhorn had of her father, alcoholic, a writer, but is a coward in the same time. So you have those three markers, but it seems to be his own father could tell stories about him, but Tom King didn't really want to disclose that. Which I don't understand. Why wouldn't you? Because it seems to be getting to build some good universe, first of all, but then you don't want to establish it even furthermore, because it would excite me to go and pick more of it. Like I could read more of this shit, because there's so many more background situations there is from this character, but we didn't really we only got a fraction of it, really, because the only good reward for us was that she got some sort of relationship with her grandfather. She got that other word, we found this other word where she was going to in her travels with her grandfather as well. I really like the governesses, and I think she's another character where you could have given a bit more light to her. The only thing we saw from her was she's very strict. She's just there to help, and she will be just like a guideline. And then realize that her age gap between both Helen and the governess is not really big gap, because that's what he said in here in this book. So I was surprised in that sense, because I actually thought that she's a bit more like aged, like gap between them. She's like in her 20s, and the governess will be like in her 40s. That's what I had an idea of. But then the way he's saying in his comic book, the gap is like 5 years difference, which is nothing.
Pretty minimal. Yeah. I always got the impression the gap was very short, that she wasn't that much older. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I kind of like, I had an idea, because maybe the way she was dressing and stuff like that, maybe it's just the way it was presented in the comic book.
I mean, her personality was very different.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't as free as Helen. So I think that's how they portrayed that. Like, here, two people of similar age. one who's very fucking straight laced, and this is this, and that's that, and this is the other, and then Helen, who's a completely wild fucking woman. Hello, Donald Rex.
Hello, hello. Sean saying that he's not allowed to criticize Tom King. I can.
No, you can criticize whoever you want. Yeah, you
The
don't have to
thing
like it.
is, it seems to be one of the works where I kind of could stay with it. I actually enjoyed what he's creating, and I actually find that it was more cohesive to what I read beforehand of whatever he was doing. It felt like it's much more established. It seems to be that he was going with it, but he ran out of issues. Like, if you're agreeing to get 6 only issues, I feel like you're supposed to have 12 of it. Do you know, like, his lucky number is 12, really? Because every single issue prior to this, always 12, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, as far as I know. Yeah.
So this, it feels like you could go 6 more issues, honestly, because you have so much more to tell. It felt this way, but the way this is ended, I do. As I say, I guess I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah. Which is totally fine. That's the way that it goes. So years ago, a friend of mine told me, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. I'm sure that's come from someone else. I don't know the original quote. I'm going to quote it to my friend Roger. And that's how I felt about this one. Like, anytime you're telling a story about someone's life, there's a lot of flowering that can happen where you don't necessarily dig into some of the dirt. I think, for me personally, this is going to be one of the best books I read this year. I loved the ending. I'm glad it's not 12 issues. I don't know. I just think that any more issues would have just dragged on the inevitable. I love that. I mean, she's, to me, just in my opinion, this is a story about real people. These aren't fantasy figures. They're set in this fantastical world for someone who's trying to get like the facts of a situation. You're talking to the wrong people, like this guy who's interviewing the governess at the end there gets frustrated, like, well, what the hell is this? And that's kind of what worked for me. I like that idea of, these are people that, from all appearances, had a horrible existence. Alcoholism, probably some sort of physical abuse, definitely some emotional abuse, issues just psychologically, where I think that a lot of it was dark, and the idea of fantasy taking you away from the darkness. Because I mean, what little fantasy isn't my favorite genre. I've always said that. It's not something that I can appreciate it. I appreciate it now more than I'm older, but it's never been kind of a genre that I've really been drawn to. And I think that one of the things that fantasy can do, just like science fiction, is it can take these heavier topics, but then kind of put some twists on it and tell those heavy topics in a different kind of way. Like in this one, like that one issue that we loved where they basically get into a bar fight. It's told in this sort of fantasy way, but in reality, she went out, got fucking shit-faced, and got into a bar fight and probably got arrested. You know what I mean? But the fantasy element of that story is, no, it was this thing, and they went out, and she really proved herself, and they went on this quest, and it's like these kind of alcoholic and addicts' minds justifying their behaviors, you know? So I loved the playing of the reality and the fantasy. I think he did it really well in this. And at the end, I'm completely satisfied with the end. Like, I hope there isn't any more, because I think for me personally, it would ruin it. I think 6 issues was enough. 12, I think, as much as I would have loved it, because I agree with you, the art and the coloring, like we said from day one, is absolutely gorgeous. It is just a gorgeous book. Like, even these back covers, it's just a stunner. This is one that I'll probably double dip on as well too. With when they come out with some sort of collection, because I would love to see this. I'm hoping that they do something a little bigger. I don't know if they will, but I feel like this is a book I would double dip on. I was a huge fan of this, and the relationships in it were super interesting. And I mean, on the last page, we get this kid who's now bought some of the books that she's decided to sell, and he's sitting in his room, and he's starting to get into this world now too. So how much can you explore in a world of storytelling? Because then you can get into like who these authors were, what was their real life like you can really, it sets you up for a lot of things. So yeah, I was completely satisfied, but I totally understand your view on it. I absolutely understand it.
also this journalist who is actually writing, and that's why they were available to be sold in the Comic-Con, whatever. So his
Yep.
journalist who was doing this, a piece about the person who actually behind this great book everybody wants to read about, he died.
Mm.
But
Yes.
then we're coming back again to him, and then they kind of have this little snippet, and that part of me, like, so you did, and then there's this more extra information with what's the purpose of this book. And I'm not trying to say, it sounds like I'm saying like I wanted everything spelled out in me. No, not that.
No.
I
Yeah.
just feel like because you mentioning him once again is kind of needed more, kind of like maybe an extra panel to kind of like to see the purpose of his obsession in generally, because he was so obsessed. But then having conversation, and while he was doing interview, he got pissed off with her because it wasn't enough for him anymore. So yes,
Mhm.
so you can drop that, and then you can sell everything, because his husband, I think, sold everything out because he died, and he basically wanted to
Mhm.
get it, and didn't want to say anything about it. And then because
Yep.
also you had those paintings,
And so
like the
what's
mission.
that person's life worth? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and those kind of
exactly.
comparisons I like he's coming as a fan wanting to uncover information.
Yeah,
She's not willing to give the information. So here's what I'll tell you. They
yeah,
went to this fantasy world and they fought witches and
yeah,
dragons and sea monsters. And I was there. I saw it with my own eyes.
yeah.
You
You
know,
like this
like
one?
what better way to find out about people's lives to some degree. And then
Yeah,
his life isn't really talked about much because I mean, I don't mean this in maybe the way it's going to come up, but who the fuck is this guy? Who cares about this guy? What did he
agree.
do with this time? He was just a fan, right? Like, so, yeah,
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 that's
yeah. And
why
I could totally see that. I thought it was
yeah,
a fun read, but after the fact, it felt like all kinds of loose threads were just too loose. Yeah,
yeah,
I can totally see that.
yeah. It's not some. I don't know. I don't know if I would pick the same kind of like way of ending it. It kind of
Mhm,
makes more sense where it basically started. It started it somebody's buying it, or actually it didn't start it with that. It started it with a journalist being curious about the book, based on
mhm,
on the people behind it. Yes,
mhm.
but it ended up in the hands of the person who basically a comic book reader, and he likes the
Yep.
fantasy part of it. So I don't know. I just say it felt like it could have like a little bit more information without having
Right.
to give completely like, okay, it felt like, oh, it's just fantasy, because that's what my end of after reading it. So okay, we're reading comic book about the comic book about the comic book kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like it just felt this way when I was reading.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess it's one of those rare times where we're not on the same page, and same with Damien, and it sounds like Sean. Like I don't feel that there was loose ends. I feel like it tied it up pretty nicely because I mean,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we were following Helen. The
Oh
book is
yeah.
called Helen of Windhorn, so I felt like I was
Mhm.
satisfied with the ending.
So what
Because I
happened to
mean,
her?
also I guess at the end of the day, the idea of knowing somebody's full life is just impossible. You know, it just isn't possible to have because it's the same thing like with monsters. Um, my
Mhm.
favorite thing is Monsters Book 2, the criticisms that were happening there. Like, this is an excerpt of somebody's journal where they
Mhm.
don't even have all the answers yet. So you're reading through someone's journal. It's the same thing here. We can only see as much about these characters as this mistress or whatever this
Go.
caregiver it
Yeah.
has access to, right? Like there's so
Yeah.
many things that she isn't seeing. So she has loose threads as well too, where it's a story being told by a third party. We're not hearing directly from Helen or her
Mm.
grandfather about their experiences. She's saying what she knows and what she was told. Because again, even there was a bunch of times where she didn't go with them. So again, that bar fight one is a great example. This is what she was told in
Mm.
their fucking drunken stupor. No, we were on this mission. It was very important because even when she goes to talk to him, and I'd have to look at the issue again, but I don't think at any point in that she acknowledges the swamp creature. She keeps talking to him as he's
Yeah.
having some sort of hallucination, maybe
Mm.
again due to alcoholism, you know, where he's
Yeah.
fighting off these, in this case, literal demons
Mm.
as she's trying to have a conversation with them. It really rode that line well, I thought, between that, using these real world issues and putting that fantastical twist on it to blur the lines again of a little bit of what's actually happening versus what isn't, so
Yeah. It's also
yeah.
opening the thread about the dad. It's kind of intriguing for me. And then
Yeah,
that he wasn't as cowardly less as what she was feeling
that's
he
right.
always were. And
And
then
I mean,
that,
to me, that story honestly was so touching because,
yeah,
again, like, I think you've nailed it. Like, this idea of how does she feel about her dad? She
yeah,
fucking hates him. So now
yeah,
here's the grandpa who's finally opening up and saying, you know what? Your dad was it's actually going to make me upset. Your dad was the opposite. He was this amazing human being who had this gorgeous wife, and they had you. Like, it's super touching, clearly. Holy shit. Yeah, I just thought that was a really touching moment when the grandfather kind of finally opens up to her, and it's like,
yeah,
let me tell you about your family. They were actually very wonderful. Forget about all those other stories. And that also plays into her telling the stories, right? Like, she's then taking that to the next level, as far as she's not going to sit there and tell someone these horrible stories about their life. She kind of wants them to be remembered as these kind of fantastical figures, right? So
yeah,
yeah, I thought it was a really touching ending to a solid fucking series. And like I said, it's easily one of my favorite reads of the year for sure, right up there.
yeah. Because the thing is where when they were underwater and they were going towards her grandmother, I
Mhm.
presume, or her mother,
Yeah.
because that's where
Her her grandmother, because that was the woman that gave them the power to go under the water,
yeah,
kind of thing,
yeah.
go and see her mother. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Because then they basically heritage is even more fantastical to what a human would have. Yes,
Yeah.
because then if your grandmother and her mother had an extra abilities we weren't aware of until like basically almost the last issue, because it was a
Mhm.
hinting of it, and
Yeah.
then there was something else more. So anyway, and then this mystical thing, Helena Winhorn, really
Yeah.
didn't explain until right last issue, saying, "Oh my
Yeah.
God,
Right.
be afraid because she's Helena Winhorn," and you're like, "But why do you afraid? Why? But because she has a power?"
Don't
But
you know who she is? Don't you
yeah, exactly.
recognize her
It's like I
face? Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I'm reading the
Yeah.
story. I
Yeah.
don't understand what is
Yeah.
Helena
Yeah.
Winhorn. But okay. Wait, now I'm going on a tangent. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is what does sometimes the comic books. Not
Yeah.
always. It'll be from the straightforward from the end to and the end. I'm sorry to say, maybe it's on purpose. Maybe my brain is thick this way. But every single time I'm reading Tom King's work, this is what
Mhm.
happens to me. I get like,
Mhm.
"Whee!" like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really
I haven't
enjoy
read
it.
enough of his stuff to know too much about the other
Yeah,
stories. Just
yeah.
the Vision that I really liked, and then the Human Target, which I also really
Which
enjoyed.
I have not yet read because of
Yeah,
him. And I was like, I really like the art because
yeah,
it would be right up my alley.
small. Yeah, he does a great. Again, he does an amazing job on the art. That's a library book you should pick up. You should check it out.
Yeah,
It's worth a read. I think I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think my library is taking a break from getting comics
Oh, okay.
because they have not had anything like new-ish, like especially like indie. Now they still have those Marvels, which I don't really give a rat's ass about the new
Yeah,
stuff, because
yeah.
I was like thinking how confused I am about Marvel now. I am as confused, and then I started reading comics because it just doesn't make sense in my book because there's
Mhm.
so much going on. Like you have to read every single Marvel book in order for you to basically know what's happening in the storyline and what's happening. And if you just go just by the team or the character, you will never know the whole storyline because it's just all those events and stuff. You read this one?
I did, but I don't know where I put it. I did read it though. Yeah, I just don't know where I've stashed it. I thought I put it here, but yes, I did read it. Yeah,
Because you showed me the previous time, I think it came out
yeah,
because they got damaged, so I just received it with this. And this one was reading extremely fast for Kaya.
yeah.
It seems to be that we're heading to another town. It seems to be that new robot who is basically coming after a golden child, whatever it's called, a golden one, I don't know, Jin. So they coming
Yeah,
after
Jin,
him,
yeah.
and Adrian. I really like the snippets of her past. I think there's so much more of the past of Kaya than you would get on the comic book yet because he's still concentrating so much on Jen, and I still
Mhm.
really want to be that she's the main character, but he gets
Yeah, totally.
lots of the magical elements of. I really like the way his magical elements now got established. He's not very good at it, but he's keep on using it. This what's his name? Razel.
Yeah, yeah.
So the kind of like a kind of slash human slash goat slash something, isn't it? Looks like.
Yeah,
Oh
this
no,
this kind of
no,
entity, this kind of
yeah,
magical
yeah.
character.
He's like this kind of like good or bad guy, but who's
Yeah,
basically ends up being a savior or bad thing for both of them to be part of, and they end up having to basically follow him because his ability to find escape routes is what basically they need at the moment, even though Kaya disagrees to the destinations they're heading into due to that vision she had. She had this vision because I don't remember, was she like plummet, did she fall down and something? Because maybe I didn't understand what happened in the issue
she
21
well, because
that she
at
got
the end
this.
of the last issue, I mean, I think I'm remembering it right. I wish I had it in front of me, but wasn't
Yeah,
the last issue Jin had gotten taken, and basically she
yeah,
launches herself onto the ship to go and rescue him, right? Doesn't she like actually go and grab on to try to save him, and then gets thrown off? I
uh-huh.
think there was an explosion. I really wish I had them close.
Yeah, me
I
too.
thought there was an explosion of some kind that sent her flying,
Hmm.
but again, it's been so long since I've read that issue because that was
Yeah.
last month's or whatever.
Anyway,
Yeah, I
it
don't.
still continues. It feels really good. I mean, it's very quite a lot of action. Not really much happening. I really like the chaos elements of her being kind of reminded that you still need to do your task. It was that
Yeah,
basically the vision still says to her, it's not about you. It's all about brother. And the vision of the whole future is all about the golden one because he's the one who's going to destroy
yeah,
the robot army, who's continuously coming after them, and we have the new bad guy who is basically able to get to them much quicker than they were doing it prior to this. And I mean, his art is absolutely like spot
yeah.
on. If each
It's so fun.
yeah, it's each issue. He's honestly, I'm like this two color situation works extremely well for me when it comes to his
Mhm,
artwork because he's using his blacks really well and knows the values and when to use them and why to use the color just to establish like parts of like emotion. So while she's in distress and the hand comes towards her, he's using this gray green color or moss color, and then he's using this like when she's feeling completely comfortable and it lights up kind of thing for her. So I really
mhm,
like this, and generally as work of his, I think he's really becoming of his own. I don't know if his writing sometimes it jumps really well, sometimes it doesn't. I think his
mhm.
extra material we kind of get hold of is even still the best established, more than the whole continuous storyline. Because I think sometimes when you don't like you have a gap and you haven't read it, you kind of like get a bit lost. Of course, you kind of get into the motions once again. Yeah. I think Damien, you would enjoy Kaya quite a lot. I think you, Birthright, you went from the get go, and it had the fantasy elements, and I think you would have had as much fun with this as you would
Mhm.
having with that. Which I dropped Birthright, and I don't understand why did I do that, but I didn't go for the whole run. I remember it was kind of
I
very
think,
much fantasy elements into it. Yeah, go on.
and I think it's just a fun book. Like
Yeah,
I think we both agree it had a little bit of a dip there. It
yes,
started off so strong with the world building and the storytelling
yeah.
that it
Mhm.
really just skyrocketed out of the gate. And then it had that little bit of a dip, and it feels like it's now coming back into it's full on into kind of it's just a fun read. Like it was just a fun issue. It's not it's not
Yeah.
mind bending, but it's really just a good time. Like it's a good journey. And again, at the end, I'm curious to what the hell is going to go on. So that's
So
what more do you need to some degree?
this is the last page. This is the city we're approaching. It's supposed to be a
Hmm.
ghost town, but now just
Hmm.
realizing it looks like those. Oh my God! Why I'm blanking on that stuff? I
Looks a
just
little
had it
like
in.
Atlantis or something. Looks like an underwater city or something.
Yeah, but it looks like illusion. It's not real.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like a
Like,
mirage kind of thing.
yeah, kind of mirage type of elements. Maybe because he wants to say that a ghost elements, because it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, it's because it's see-through. You can't really see it.
Yeah.
You see the clouds behind it. You can see the clouds behind the city. It's not really
Ghost of a city.
yeah, ghost of a city, exactly. So it's very fast. It's pacey. It's adventurous, which is
Super
what he
fast.
wants. Yeah, he wants that to be this, but honestly, still, following this through, Jin is curious because his magic elements comes through to him to help when he needs to escape, and he did that by becoming a bug, and he lands away from, like he shoots away as a little bug. I don't know if you can spoil, but he's becoming more, like, using more of his magical elements, which is great. But I think still Kaya and her struggles and being who she's a protector and young protector as sorts, and being not sure of herself, it still makes her the character which I want to follow more than Jin in the storyline.
Yeah.
I find it no wonder he has the name of hers plastered as the main title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's honestly, no matter how many times she keeps struggling, and then Jin is supposed to be the savior of the whole thing.
Yeah.
She's the
Yeah,
one. You're
yeah.
like, yeah, go for it, girl. I know. I want you to go and win, or
Yeah.
be, because it's just like it's frustration of it. Like, it looks like he established her as a frustrated teenager who has to do a job because there's nobody else behind to do it, and they give her this enormous task to do, and then that she doesn't want to, but and that sense of they really taught her how to be responsible, like but then still you can see her naivety when it comes to some certain situations, how she needs to deal with the bad guys. She's like full on go for it without being tactically driven. So she's more punch to the brim of no return, rather than think before I go approach it. It's the situations.
Yeah.
Which is,
well, I mean, he wouldn't last 5 minutes on his own without her. Like,
oh no,
there's your chosen one. He's a heap in the corner. Body parts are down the river. Like, he'd be fucked without Kaya, right? Like, he wouldn't stand a chance.
But then it also gives you another thing. So you have a teenager. I definitely think she's teenager, like 15, 14, maybe 13, 14, 15 age, and he's 7 or 8. So there's a huge gap between two of them. And that as a dynamic is also very difficult to establish. But also, like for 6 or 7-year-old, like my son is, for example, of course, you leave them in the middle of nowhere. I don't think they know what to do. And they still need somebody next to them in order to basically direct them towards, some certain thing until they get.
Yeah, he's got zero. But the thing is, he's got zero survival instincts. She's got survival instincts in spades, but he really just doesn't have any survival instincts whatsoever. Like, he's really, I mean, he's still trying to figure out. He's young. I get all that, but yeah.
But then he's always been put on a pedestal as a chosen one. So they were so precious of him that they didn't let him do. They didn't let him do anything towards his own. And whereas, like, you have completely an opposite of Kaya, who is was nurtured just to be a warrior kind of thing, a protector, or because she has that naturally gift ability of being not afraid, because they were harnessing that for her to become what she is now, even though not finishing to being a polished article kind of thing. You know what I mean? She still has lots of to work towards, but with much higher. They both have very big responsibilities. However, it's like how the story will go forward. We'll kind of get established to see what's going to happen next, and that's really exciting me. Just even talking about this way, how we what we feel about the characters makes me want to read more of the storyline anyway.
Yeah, and I think the only minor criticism is that every single issue reads really fast. Like, it's really one of those books where you pick it up and you read it fast, which is why, like, early on, it was nice to have a lot of issues backed up and be able to read a big chunk of it. Like, out of any of these books, the one that I would say don't worry about missing it month by month, just get the collections, because honestly, I think that might be a better way to read this, where you get a nice 6-issue chunk in a trade paperback that then you can sit and read. I think that might be the better path for this one.
I don't know how. I don't know if he's doing those hardcovers or he's just doing the trade paperbacks, because I don't I don't recall seeing like nice deluxe edition of Kaya, to be honest. Because
I
I
mean,
went
how
to
many issues, how many trade paperbacks are usually in those collections? 3, 4? What's the number for that one?
because it's 22
Because that
issues.
issue number is 20 something, right? We're into the
Yeah,
20s now, aren't we?
22.
22.
So 6 issues is one trade paperback. 12
So
issues is
24
two.
issues would be 4 trade paperbacks,
So
right?
then
So
maybe that's when they're gonna do deluxe, when they
yeah,
have like
maybe
a
that's because that's what I'm thinking. Maybe there's just not enough material yet to do like
yeah.
a hardcover or something, or
Because
like
I don't
do a
even
collection.
yeah, because I don't really recall actually even mention that they having hardcover edition of this Kaya
Hmm.
stuff. But maybe that's what he's waiting for, because as I say, they all keep on saying that it's not a very cheap way of dealing with
Right.
rip prints these days.
Hmm.
So yeah. Anyway, love it still.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it as well too. I'm glad that I stuck around because man, there was some stinkers of issues.
Oh yeah, there
Um,
was some of them there. Oh yeah, there you go. My last one. Yes,
did you get it?
The chunk,
This is
the
your
chunk.
last one, really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't have that much going on this week anyway. I mean, I
Okay.
didn't get any this week books. There was
Right.
nothing. I don't pick up. And now,
Yeah, I went
because of
yesterday. I had nothing this week either, so yeah.
this one and Helen is finished. So now I even 2 more books less in the pool. So I guess I'm
Hmm.
waiting for some sort of like this exciting coming out, maybe,
Yeah,
hopefully. But I
I'm
don't
about the
remember.
same. Like this
I
is,
mean,
this and Helen, like that's like half my pull list,
yeah, and they were the most expensive books in my. Well, Usagi
Yeah.
is still my expensive, but this is like
But I mean,
6.
come on, like this one
Oh yes,
for $5.99, like,
yeah,
dude, this is a
no, no.
fucking doozy. Because it's cover to cover. Like there's no ads, there's no nothing.
So to make a
So
one thing, we know they're gonna do another one. Seems to be.
yes.
So they
Yeah.
are
He's
saying
already
to
showing
us,
off some art from it. Ian Bertram's showing off art
yeah.
on his Instagram page.
So they are doing something else after this, which is exciting to us who is fans of this creation.
Yep.
This is as they said. First of all, also I would say quite a bit of question marks. I would presume,
Yeah.
because of our main character's involvement and his task of in generally. I thought that he
Yeah.
only has to do one, but then apparently not really, because when he was a child they used him to insert a story. Is that
Yeah,
what?
basically, yeah.
In order
And
to,
then reciting that story is going to
yeah,
bring about some dramatic
yeah,
changes to their society
yeah.
overall. Yeah.
So that's how they
Or
play.
unlock his power, I guess maybe is a better way to put it.
Yeah, because this is how they play with changing the future. It's all
Hmm.
about changing. So there's this 12th church, whatever it's called, this
Yeah.
establishment which basically wants to take over the world, created the way it's supposed to be because they have a vision. And then you have this professor who's been using people to his own advantages and some sort of his own agendas. And
Hmm.
our main character was the one he used in order to push the future in the way he kind of felt it was correct way to deal with it. Yes,
Yeah.
I obsess about work of his in generally in Bertram's, and I think this is lends to itself even furthermore how much he can do. I mean, come on. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just
Like,
absolutely
I know.
craziness. I
Like
mean,
I'm listening to you as you're speaking, but I'm looking through the pages again,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just fucking mind blowing.
yeah,
It's mind blowing the work in here.
yeah.
I
And
read
it's
I reread last night. I reread House of Penance. I was
oh,
just
did
gonna
you?
flip through it. I ended up reading the whole thing because I've got it in hardcover. It's amazing to see the difference and the
Houses?
growth of his art from that to this. Because I remember at the time
Yeah,
loving that. I look back
yeah,
on it now and it looks minimal compared to this. Like I think of an Ian Bertram now tackling that story. Holy
mm-hmm.
fuck, it would be insane. It would be so incredible. Like it's still a really good book. It's still read really, really well. I still really like that story.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting to sit and look at his art from that time period. And that was what 2019, I think, is when that was out. So 5 years. it's not a short time, that's for sure. But the leaps and bounds that his art has made in those kind of 5 years, and obviously again, like Matt Hollingsworth needs a full shout out for it because it's due to his coloring that it has such the impact. Yeah, it's stunning, man.
It's this I don't know, whatever. It's just this creature which is basically floating around and is going to basically get to the point where the child was involved, and that's what he ended up into, isn't it? This is the child, the child who all of them are searching turned into this creature. Yes, am I correct or am I confusing myself?
I think you are right, because he does end up unlocking this boy's power with this word, with the last word, wormwood or whatever. Because I was just looking through it again. Yeah, so I kind of yes is the answer.
Do you think the Damon better than Mobius? I don't know.
I mean, I can't. I don't like comparisons like that. Mobius is fucking amazing. Ian Bertram is amazing. I can't possibly compare them. In my mind, they're two completely different artists. Especially this level of Ian Bertram. This isn't Mobius level. Like this is where, yes, I can see the influences, but this is Ian Bertram making a voice for himself. Because this, to me, because I mean, even looking through that House of Penance, there's other artists that you see in that work as well too, whose names of course are escaping me right now, but he has obvious influences. The guy that did Nameless, that book Nameless, which isn't close to me.
Oh my god.
And then that did the All-Star Superman, Quietly. Like there's elements of Quietly in some of his earlier work. But at this point, Ian Bertram is his own artist. He is very singular. He's gone and etched out a path. And again, like him and Hollingsworth, that is a power team, man. I hope those guys end up working on many, many things together, because that is a hell of a duo that they've got there, because their communication and understanding whatever they've done to get them to this point, it's so apparent on the page. And to me, so when we think of like Helena Winhorn, to me, this one is confusing. Like I understand the nuggets. Like I feel like I understand the moments in the story. I don't understand what the overarching idea is. When I think of stories, I always feel like there's some angle that the writer is coming from. They want to portray, they want to give you some sort of information. And I feel like for this one, it's beautiful to look at. The stories were great to read. I was fully immersed in the world when I'm reading it, but I don't quite understand what the overall ideas are that you're trying to get to me. Like this fear of religion, fear of technology, even though we're living inside it, but then we're using some sort of like almost religious elements in this by reciting some story that's going to unlock this power. It's interesting. Yeah. And people do name drop Mobius for sure. But I'd say that he's so far from Mobius right now at this point that I don't see the comparison anymore. I once did for sure. And there's some lines that maybe could be attributed to like a Mobius, but he's this is Ian Bertram now. He's his own person now that people are going to be comparing future artists to, you know.
I think this story is the religion and science clash between, to understand who has the right way or path for humanity, and we end up being in between of it. We have horses or people or characters who gets involved in that clash between two powerhouses, because some of them needs to use their abilities in order to portray the message they feel is the right one. So we have the main character who's basically situationally, because they're living in those times where technology lends to you manipulating yourself as who you are. And what religion is always got involved, who you are is already what you established, and nothing you need to change in order to live the happy life forward. Yes. So you have the scientist who has this idea of kind of sending a message via not so conventional ways to prove his point. So now he's using this guy who's manipulating himself to better himself, because he's already has his own struggles with his family life, whatever is going on in him. And then and that's what I'm saying is kind of clash together, and we having just an explosion between two. And then and this is how I see it, and I find it quite fascinating, because this is what we always question. We always have a problems with scientists developing some sort of advancements in humanity, and then you have religion who's saying, oh God forbid, no, because we already have done that for millennia, like 80 years and hundreds of years, and we're still okay, kind of thing. But scientists says, no, we have to go with the time. We have to progress even further down. We cannot stagnate and just be who we are. We have to move forward in order to better ourselves, because there's also, like this notion we always have ourselves, like we always say, oh, I want to do more, like there's more, there's, like you are curious no matter which way. And then, like, and this is an explosion to people's ideas to get to that. And we have those characters established. And I don't find it very, like, I don't think they communicated the whole story kind of clearly enough. But they also mentioning the stuff about his daughter. Like you say, the little bird is came out, 10, 15 years later after this, what's happened.
Yeah, that's right. I don't remember the amount of time, but yes, it was quite a time after this.
So,
and they sort of
and
hinted
they were
at it
telling, and they were establishing in here to tell her once again, you the one who needs to go forward, basically, because you're the generation, and those generations we need to save in order to get to that point. You can't have future without any younger generations to go move forward with whatever we have established prior to that. So I honestly absolutely loved it. I guess
same.
In some ways, because they doing the religion part, which is not my favorite topic, to be quite honest, in generally. But I am fascinated by seeing these, because they're showing us a future, which is very kind of intriguing as well. Because you seeing her growing up, and then she's becoming like a teacher to some kids and stuff like that, which is kind of intriguing generally, what she can able to do. But her background is always, she struggled. Even that person who his dad asked to save her, and she did that job, which is really good, from being a bad person, the daughter of a scientist who already has manipulated her head to no return, and she had only one focus, to find a child also for the father. She still managed to become, or whatever she felt it's good to do, even though she died. At the end of it, she was completely slaughtered by this guy, which is the guy who was speaking for the religion's part of it. So there's those two clashes. Anyway, fascinating. I absolutely love it. And he didn't die. The main character didn't die, because this is 35 years later. And we're seeing him in the desert, like old man Logan. Walking and telling us some things, which was going to hopefully establish in the future, and hints of what there is, and still having that hand, because he got completely, like, his head went like smushy, and I was like, oh, this is it. But I guess not. So all these advancements literally will work for it. I really liked it anyway.
Me as well. I loved it. Again, it's another one that's easily a top read of the year. Like, it's an amazing story, amazing achievement.
As much as I like Helen, Bilquis Evely was topping in her art skills, I think Ian Bertram is like I can put a crown. Honestly, I think if I want people, like, just give us such a shot, whatever it gets collected by in hardcover. But it's a experience. It's a trip and experience on itself. And no matter which way we all read and what we have ideas of whatever's happening or surrounding us, it's still really nice to see how.
Go ahead.
This team has established this as a piece of work. Because, as I say, you say correctly that Ian Bertram and Matt Hollingsworth together is it's a thing I would like to see more often. Like they say, if you want Ian Bertram, Matt Hollingsworth goes with them together, because it seems to be like, I'm mesmerized, and it's not many times you kind of provoke yourself when you flip in the comic pages to, like, I mean, story, yes, great, but the art is just like, oh my god, could be a nice, like, poster. There's another name, Wormwood, which they haven't really given any clues about, which kind of bothers me.
Yeah, that was kind of like the final piece of the puzzle. Yeah, Wormwood is in absinthe and is supposed to be a hallucinogenic, so I find that interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So is maybe a new title name? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, I really liked it.
Apparently, I think it was Colin telling me that his people that sell his pages, Ian Bertram's pages, is Felix Comic Art, and apparently when the issue comes out, they put up pages for sale from the issue, and apparently they sell out instantaneously, like they sell out instantly.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that's now, and it was Chris Burnham was the other name I was trying to think of earlier.
Yes.
That's so I mean, he's sort of in that universe with the Burnhams and the Quietleys, and in that, and the Mobius. They all kind of share a same space, but each of them have gone on to do their own thing. It's a beautiful book, man. I could see myself, again, one I would easily double dip on. I hope they do, like House of Penance is a little bit bigger, like taller than a comic book. I hope they do something like that with this. I hope there's something that's a little more oversized, because I'll absolutely buy it, Yeah.
I definitely would. If they would do like a proper oversized of that, I'll probably go double dip. Now I'm okay with because no matter which way, I mean, I really like hardcovers and the way whoever prints it, but it still doesn't have the same moments as you have it in single comic format. The pleasure of opening it up and seeing every single cracks of the comic, and that's just such a pleasure for me, especially when it comes to the as artist established as what I like from him now to see. And well, because of you, I read it, because you basically told me I have to kind of go.
I mean, I think everybody should read it, honestly. Like, that's the other thing about doing this. It's nice to be able to go, hey, you should pay attention to this book, because again, you and I are the same. We don't have huge pull lists. So it's like when I'm going to spend some money on a pull list, that's it's got to offer me something,
Another thing which I just maybe noticed, but the background, the background color, but you can't see it now, probably not. It's grainy. So there's a color, but it's never like plain clear.
That's right.
It lends to its every single kind of like basically the theme, because the way he's drawing the faces, he's using a lot of textured lines, and then there's textured lines behind it as well in there. So I wonder what they used. Lovely.
Like an addition with the color pages and then the black and white pages. I'd love to see some more black and white pages too. That would be great for sure. And then Sean said, even if the story wasn't as thought-provoking as it is, the art on Precious Metal is such a trip. It's a must-have series anyway. Yeah, I totally agree that if you're a fan of comics. And again, like, I just think of all of the art that all of us have seen in our comics reading over the years. It's so rewarding to see something that, like, wow, I've never seen it done like this before. Even with the panel layouts, like, I loved the kind of panoramic panel layouts that he used for most of the issue, but like it's nice to be surprised by art again in comics.
That's the only snippet of black and white we get on the back.
You only get that one at the end of each issue. Yeah, which
kind of tells you what's next issue, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll probably be the collection's cover, I guess.
Pretty maybe. 35 years before the events of Littlebird. So that's lots of time.
That's lots of time. So that puts us right where that one ends off, because wasn't that 35 years later? He's in the desert. So
35 years later.
So now I guess it'll be tying them or continue. Again, I've actually got to reread Little Bird now. Instead of saying it every week, I've actually got to do it. Because I think now would be a good time to get back into it. And
are you having hard? Do you have a?
No, I've got the single issues. I didn't buy I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't buy the collected edition of Little Bird, and I'm sort of kicking myself now because I really should have.
They have the trade paperback, like that cover of this. But
yeah.
The hardcover was all white, and it looked really nice, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No LahRasa, but that Bertram is pretty darn good.
Don't even try. It's way far, and it's mind-blowing. But the thing is, he has a very complicated art style. It's too much. He goes into details, like he's kind of like obsessed about line arts and stuff like that. Each shadow. Like he doesn't use like that much shadow as much as it scratches. So he uses as a more intense, like this one, like the more intense parts of it you have.
Yeah,
It's just the more scratching in the same piece of paper, which is takes ages. So I
takes
don't really
age.
know how long he takes it. So
Yeah.
it's actually quite scary how long it takes for him to do stuff. Oh,
Speaking of a guy that takes ages sometimes, I
yeah.
finally got my issue. So this was delayed. This came out it came out a few weeks ago at this point, but this is the brand spanking new Matt Howarth comic. So there's 3 issues.
Huh?
It's Termite Mound. So it's done
What's
by a
new?
company called Cosmic Line. Yeah, it's brand new. So it just came out. I think at this point it's come out. What are we? November? Did it come out end of October or was it even early November? I just know that on my end it got delayed at the comic shop, so they didn't get their shipment in. And
Hmm.
one of the bonuses is a Brandon Graham pin up at the back here,
Cool.
which makes more sense once you've read the issue. This does a good job of kind of putting some of the highlights of this issue in there. So this is going to be a 3-issue miniseries through this Cosmic Line Productions. On the inside front cover, it says that this is a limited print run of 300, the first print. So they only did, that's your publisher. Well, there you go, Sean Riaz. So check out Cosmic Lion for some Sean Riaz work as well too. So yeah, I guess because they're a smaller company, I don't know how big they are, so that makes it. I'm extra glad that I got my hands on it. If there's only 300 of them, it was great. It's good to see. I love Matt Howarth. It's good to see him back. And again, like with his style, where he can be incredibly detailed as well, as really using a lot of white space for his characters. This one is kind of a a world where the powers that be live in this thing that the people call the termite mound, which is what that was at the beginning. So this is basically a revolutionary story of kind of like this group that's there to take out the system. But right now
Yeah.
there's this one sole character going up the termite mound to kill off the powers, and he's got this power where he's got an entity that's, I guess, sort of almost like a specter kind of thing, like a Jim Corrigan. It can
Uh-huh.
burst out of him, but he still exists and can still kind of continue on what he's doing. And it turns out that this entity is controlled by a guy who's kind of holed up nearby. So it's actually another person that's utilizing some sort of magic. I would only say that the minor criticism that I have is the way this entity speaks was a little bit much for me. Believe in declimer alone. He talks like that. So it's this kind of, in my mind, the stereotypical kind of South African way of speaking English. Be shooting at the unarmed mon for the misdemeanor and stuff like that. So it gets a little much to read that stuff where, I don't know, just have him talk. I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand. I guess it's obviously to do with where this character is from, but it doesn't kind of make sense in this sort of futuristic world, I guess. It seems a little forced to have that kind of dialogue in there. But overall, though, I really liked the story. Like I said, I love Matt Howarth so much. I also read Particle Dreams this week as well, too, which was a Fantagraphics thing. And that was nice to kind of dive into his world. So yeah, I'm on board for this one for sure for the 3 issues. It was $5. Do they have a? Yeah, here we go. So there's info on the website and stuff. Hopefully that's showing up okay.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to remember to put links in as well for this. So yeah, curious to see what else is going to come from this one. 2 more to go.
Only £30 on eBay.
30 pounds already. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess when you do something that limited, like 300 issues, but it's not like I mean, his name is going to draw people like me in, but I don't think that people are flocking for the next Matt Howarth book.
So
Besides just a few with me and Brandon Graham, no big deal.
my
NBD, bro.
my husband's South African, and that didn't sound. Maybe there's a bit more of South African slang more than
Yeah,
anything, because
yeah.
like the only place which we traffic light is called robot in South Africa.
Okay.
And it's like, hey, you mean the free lights there? Yeah, robot. The one who changes lights. I was like, oh, okay. So I now even say I actually like I make people confused. While we were on a trip with my son in the class, I was saying the kids about traffic light, and I said the robot as well, which I was like, everybody looked at me weird, like, what are you talking about? What robot?
Yeah, yeah.
What's robot? It's like that one. It's like, and I was, oh
Robot.
yeah, traffic light. The traffic lights.
Yeah.
One thing to mention, which I'm kind
Mhm.
of like, I'm not sure, am I comprehensive about it or not? But the revival book I went crazy about for like the
Yep.
beginning of my reading. They're doing TV show,
Oh yeah.
and they, I don't know, I don't think I'm excited about it, but CM Punk is in there, gonna be as an actor of the
Who the
revival
hell? Why
series.
do I know that name? Who's that
Because
guy?
he's a wrestler. He's a very
Oh, he's
famous
a wrestler.
wrestler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's been doing some acting, like what wrestlers they like, like doing, and
Yes.
so
Like
like
The
so
Rock
he.
and all these other guys that all of a
Yeah,
sudden are.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, because I follow the Mike Norton, the artist of the comic,
Mhm.
and he's keep on giving you like, oh my god, exciting! We have CM Punk now part of the crew, and actually quite good. I mean, I don't remember now. Of course, I could have done it while you were talking about comic book and establish a bit more, but they have quite a cast now.
Okay.
But they only saying about that they're getting it, so they haven't yet filmed it. Well, it's gonna be done by Sci-Fi.
Okay.
It's the people who's actually gonna do. Oh no, it doesn't say.
Sean's a big fan of CM Punk. His
He's still
favorite
active.
active wrestler.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't say the cast yet because Oh yeah, so Oh, maybe this is no. Wait, this is already done. No, that's many revival. Apparently, revival TV series before it was, but yeah, but it's the biggest story now that CM Punk is part of the cast, which is
Mm-hmm.
everybody. I just want to lots of people who likes wrestling. I'm mentioning there, but it's
He's
one
a
of
big
my
comics guy.
yeah. And I think there's another actress which is very familiar. I've seen her before, but I can't see it. Oh, she was main chick from Winona Earp TV series, which
Okay.
have maybe watched
Mm-hmm.
once, but she's gonna be the main girl. Anyway, so I'm really excited to be
Sean said
honest.
he's a big comics guy and he's a straight edge, bleeding heart liberal. So he's a comics fan. So that's a positive. If he's going to be in a comics
Yeah,
to TV show or movie production, that's good that he's a fan.
I think when the Revival book came out, not many people were as excited as I was in that time. Tim Seeley's work, writer by the way. But I'm kind of like, if people are gonna start reading it more of that back, because they have really nice Jenny Friesen covers, which she's basically established because of that series, because she was putting those covers and everybody was like going crazy for it.
Yeah. Sure
But in
were.
generally, kind of, I'm probably gonna have to like close by if whenever the show is actually gonna be made. I'm probably gonna reread the comic again. So there you go.
Is this true? Off my shelf shouts it's clobbering time before every match, so comics is on every sleeve he owns. Is that true? He says it's clobbering time.
It has lots of tattoos. I don't know exactly all many, but there's
Okay.
lots of tattoos on his arms.
Yeah.
He always has broken arm though. The one time I remember seeing
Oh
CM
yeah.
Punk on rest, he's always have broken arm. Like he has always
Right.
a cast on, or he's quite. I mean, earlier when I was actually watching some of wrestlings, because in my country we kind of like a lot of American stuff, so wrestling was part of it. I remember CM Punk when he was younger, wrestling, and I enjoyed it because he's very always a bad guy, but he's very like his facial expressions were fantastic, and he's like true character, as you call it. Like John Cena is a bit more too good to be true kind of character
Yeah.
from the
Right. Yeah.
wrestlers and all that. Typical American boy who established himself and became a superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Anyway.
mean, it makes sense that some of those guys would transition over. They can do their own stunts and things like that, and so
Well, he's gonna be a
have to tell a
sheriff.
story through acting. That's for sure.
I don't know. Is it sheriff or something like that? Some law enforcement. He's gonna be part of, because
Okay.
we have two sisters. One of them a copper, another one is a kind of like a black sheep of the family.
Mhm.
She gets pregnant, and then the zombie kind of type of it happens in the series. I mean, I really enjoyed it because it was like that
Mm.
mystery part. It actually was coming out in the same time when Rachel Rising was coming out.
Mhm.
So kind of like similar timelines. So I think a lot of
Right.
people
Right.
were doing quite a few zombie kind of type of storylines. But she was
Mhm.
pregnant and she had like, was she a zombie or wasn't she? How can you a zombie be a pregnant? And was the baby zombie inside her? Like all that kind of
Right.
mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah. I
know,
remember you talking about it, and it always sounded interesting, but just one of those I never dug into.
I as I
Rachel
say,
Rising, however, it's a good thing you bring that one up. I've got to get the next volume of Rachel Rising because, fuck me, is that a good read so far?
oh, you haven't finished it yet. I thought
No, I
you were
haven't finished it.
done.
I've only got those 3 trades because they were dirt cheap, so I haven't seen them yet for cheap. So I may
Mhm.
have to splurge and buy them at like cover price at this point. I was
Yeah.
hopeful that I would see them come in cheap because I'd much rather, obviously, buy them for $5 a piece. So
Mm. I'm kind of
yeah.
excited now. Like, honestly, I never thought that Revival would get a spot on a TV show limelight kind of thing, but that's exciting for me because I am a fan. But
Hmm.
also, like Criminal, they talk about Criminal quite a lot,
Hmm.
but they haven't yet, gone into like full. I don't know. Are they already put in production? I'm not really
I
sure.
think I think they are in production. Yeah, I'm curious
Mhm.
to see what that's going to be like as well too.
Because kind of intriguing. Not
Yeah,
everything
absolutely.
from comic books goes really well in TV shows. Like
Yeah.
Preacher, for example, like I'm still have like I'm not a fan. I love the comic, absolutely love the
Yeah.
comic, but
I hope that I'm curious if they're going to do any more Sandman or not now, because yeah, they did a good job on that one, that first season. I thought anyway.
they're
Yeah.
still mentioning quite a few times of Neil Gaiman stuff, but not really like I don't know if people are excited anymore. But I know that TV show like the Dead Boy Detectives got completely cut just because of that rumor. That
Mhm.
was enough for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. They're in
Yes.
production, but let's be honest, the comics are going to be better. I don't know about that. I mean, the comics are going to be phenomenal for sure, but I
Mhm.
think the thing that Criminal has going for it is Brubaker is a part of the show too. So I feel like it could be amazing in a different way. The comics will still stand as like I love that series. That was my introduction to both of them. And I completely ate it up. I've got all the single issues. I've got a couple of the collections in hardcover. Like I ate that shit up. It was so good. But I do feel positive that because he's involved in it to the degree that he is, that there's a chance for it to also be a really good TV show and maybe stand on its own as opposed to being a comparison and looking to cash in on it. Yeah, he totally deserves my money for sure. But if I can find and give him money that's $5, because somebody's already paid him by the time the books get to me, I'm assuming
Mhm.
he's talking Terry Moore.
Yeah.
The actor who played Morpheus in Netflix's Sandman looks like he stepped straight out of the comic. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a great. I thought they did a great job with that. Anyway,
What about the boys?
um,
The boys are the most popular, I think, when it comes to
yeah,
TV show based on comic, isn't it?
I
But
I feel like it is. That's the one that I hear about all the time, and I also hear about it from a lot of people that don't read comics as well too, and even they love it. Like they really dig it. I have yet to see all of them. We've watched a good chunk of them, and I was getting a kick out of it. I never read the comic, but I was getting a kick out of that show for sure.
yeah, I have not read the. I know I because the boys were having the English actor, that oh, their names, and they don't have that actor
Yeah.
as a part of main character. They used the American one. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's not that point. But I always wanted to read it, boys, but I never gone into. And then TV show came out, but I never watched that. Kind of watched the first maybe 4 episodes of that,
Mhm.
I found it quite gruesome as well, the way they used the.
It was, yeah, which was also entertaining because again, it was very the
Mhm,
violence was very comic booky and over the top too, from what I remember. So yeah.
mhm.
Um,
You
so
go.
I mean, not too much to say. I got this Godzilla Rivals one shot,
Who
which was fine. It was good enough.
who was
I
the
just like
artist?
Godzilla. The artist is,
Not
let's
the
see, let's
one.
open it
Not
up.
the one we like. Yeah? Not Stoko. No, no Stoko.
No, 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 God, no. I'd be talking about it way more highly if it was Stoko. No, this is, let me find my cursor here. There you go. So there's the
Kevin Anthony
creators there.
Catalan. Never heard of
And
him.
it's a fun enough book. It's colorful and there's giant monsters beating the shit out of each other, Space Godzilla and King Ghidorah. And then as usual, it kind of drills down onto a single character who's wants to go save his father, who is in kind of like this zone that's kind
Oh,
of
I like
off
it.
limits, and that's his father there. So has a very manga type of style to
Yes,
it.
I was about to
And it
say it.
was it was good. I don't think it was a great story. It kind of it's a one shot, so they had to get everything into it at once. So there was a real kind of this
Yeah.
character turn that was very, very quick because it had to be because we only have a certain amount of pages. I'm glad I picked it up and gave it a shot, but I don't know if this is out of all the Godzilla stuff that's out there. I don't know if this is necessarily one I would worry about hunting down or anything, unless you really love the artwork and you want to see it for yourself. But yeah, other than that, the story was just kind of meh.
Mm.
And then, of course, we get the big man himself coming in
Oof.
to set things right as he does. So yeah, couldn't say no to that one.
So it seems to be you're very much of Godzilla fanboy. Yes.
Oh, I love Godzilla. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
So,
I love it, and I mean that's why it's so exciting when something like Shin Godzilla comes out and gets the response that it gets, or when Godzilla -1 comes out and gets like again, like to me that stuff that's the best of that genre. That's like understanding a genre and understanding why a monster was created and what that backstory was, taking into account the what was going on politically and historically at that time. Why did they create this character? And understanding all of that and presenting a fantastic, because I mean, again, like Godzilla -1 is an anti-war movie. It has some propaganda elements in it for sure, with all of the Japanese on the ships and we're gonna save our country, all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty strong anti-war movie where if you think that you have a stand a chance against things that you've unleashed on nature, you're fucking kidding yourself, man. It's gonna crush you, and it's gonna keep coming back and keep coming back. So yeah, stuff like that is great.
do you have an action figure of Godzilla?
I sure do. I've got a few of them. Yeah, they're upstairs though. And then up here I've got Rodan and Mothra sitting up on the shelf over here, but upstairs I've got Godzilla. My brother bought me two Godzilla figures from Japan. Actually, he brought them when he went to Japan this last
Mm.
year.
So
So he got me a couple of those. And then I
what?
saw a new Godzilla -1 figure done by Super 7,
Mm-hmm.
$150. Oh my God, it's beautiful. And again, that was one I put in my hand. I actually took a picture of it. But it's like I can't spend no $150 on it. So I put it down and walked away. But it's gorgeous. I took a photo so I could like look later and just drool over it more.
Yeah. The the action figures is the worst because isn't it true that they, in order to do the special edition like Blu-rays these days, they do action figures now and the stuff? That
Oh, I,
way?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because I know Marvel does sometimes tries to do that, but they completely
Okay.
suck at it. By the way,
Yeah.
like that franchise called Venom.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite. My husband likes it, which fun enough. I've never managed to even finish watching first movie
Yeah.
that came out with that, and I didn't like it. I like the character hell a lot, but the movie just doesn't. But I saw Marvel producing like special edition Blu-ray for Venom, and they have this figure next to it, like sort of special, like just that one off. You're never gonna get it. Blah 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 blah. Try to
Yeah.
entice you to get it, and it looks
Yeah.
like the worst toy thing you can ever make out of action
Yeah.
figure. Like there's no intent whatsoever to be actually something fantastical.
No, it's a collectible. It's a share. It's a
Mm-hmm.
stock or something. You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of what they do it as.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
You
let
go.
me just back up here because I feel like we missed something here. I agree, but there's no production like that that doesn't have executives and producers 100%. They will water it down and play things in a different way with Brubaker or not. Yeah, and I mean, I don't disagree with you. There's 100% so many hands in the pie, and which is the thing that always frustrates me when people talk about directors. Oh my God, that movie was amazing. The director should get the award. Motherfucker, the director's one person on a production. And if you think that a director on all of these movies has
Mm.
the final say, you're kidding yourself because there's so many money
It's too
people
many.
in play. Now, the one thing though, that's where it comes down to. I'm curious what the details of his contract were, because
Mm.
there's things that you can do that you can put in. Hey, listen, I will license this for you to make something. I need to be involved. I have final say. I have final cut. There's all these little things that people can put in their contract to ensure that they get some sort of final say. I feel like Brubaker is smart
Can
enough
do
to
it.
potentially do
Yeah.
things like that. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
he's not a knucklehead who's just coming into the industry. I feel like he's got his eyes open on quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that, because you're totally right, there's so many hands in these projects that it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
know what it's going to be like.
Exactly.
In a good scale, if only we get a Godzilla figure in a good scale with other lines. Okay, so like cross toy lines, there would be a scale that would work. Yes, I get you. Yeah, I mean that's getting way too much into the weeds of toys for me, though. It's bad enough I've got the toys that I do. That's my wife even said to me. She's like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "Nothing really. Like socks and underwear. Like you get me everywhere. That's fantastic. I love that shit." She's like, "Well, how about a toy?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 nope. Do not try to give me an excuse to give you a list of toys. No, take that back right now.
I think
You
I
do
was.
not want to open this door."
I think for the I was kind of like thinking as well for myself what I would like, because I usually go into, I don't know why, but I always like to be very not useful stuff, not like toys and all that stuff. But I
Yeah.
think I want a couple of like collected or omnibuses, which I don't I don't see myself kind of wanting to purchase, but maybe for Christmas would be okay too.
Yeah.
So I might do on that level, because I usually ask my husband to get me a comic, like
Yeah.
specific. I go give him like, just get me the like specific. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because I don't know what you're talking about, so you have to be very specific what you want. But then
Mm-hmm.
what we do is like I give him a list, and then he picks up whatever he feels I would like to. So
Yes.
like 1 year he gave me rights and cover, just for cover basically comic,
Yeah.
because I wanted to collect quite a few of it. But I think I want a couple of books I want to read, but I never feel like I want to spend money on it.
Uh-huh.
So maybe I'll do that.
Pass them on. And that's what I usually end up doing with people that ask me. It's like, I literally send them, like my mom, I'll literally send her a link. Here's what I want. Here's where I'd like you to buy it from. Just get me this. And that's because I always say, yeah, whatever. She just keeps asking. So I usually give her like, they get us a gift card to a local kind of Italian grocer place, which is super nice because for our New Year's dinner, we usually do like a meat and cheese trays and stuff like that, right? So we buy all that stuff from this Italian store. But anything else, it's like, please don't just get me something to get me something. If you have to get me something, just get this, and I'll be ecstatic. Trust me, that'll be more than enough.
I have an idea, Terence. Why don't you ask them to give you a voucher for my comic shop?
Yeah, I've thought of that, but I didn't want to do. I'd rather have it supporting local businesses. So I say, get me one from McNally Robinson, who they've got an amazing comic collection, like the hardcover and stuff like that in trades. They always have multiple stuff in that I would love to read. And same with you. There's some things there that I'm interested in, but it's like, I don't know if I want to spend the money to try that out. So if they got me a gift card there, that would help me get books that I just kind of are interested in. We need Hot Toys to do Comic Crack and LahRasa figures. Yeah, please. That would be amazing.
Very realistic, has to be, by the way.
Make two of each.
I want to be dressed really well, nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll send some
hot.
old photos of 10 years ago that you can do the sculpts
Yeah.
based off of. So I tried out another new book as well called Spectrum. And it's because, yeah, everybody's going to send me Gitch. Thanks very much. Yes, please send me Gitch. So this one called Spectrum, and the cover caught my attention. This is Mad Cave, which did you know that Mad Cave has been around for 10 years? Because I sure as hell
I've
didn't.
never knew it existed. Sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's only a company that I think I've only gotten introduced to over the past couple of years.
Yes.
And that's maybe being generous, you know. So, and I did a quick flip through, and it looks great. The art is really, really nice in it. I don't know about the story yet. It had some kind of almost Brennan McCarthy-esque type of characters in it. Like I would associate that style of clothing with something that he might come up with. But it's one artist. Let's get the credits here. So writer is Rick Quinn, and the artist is Dave Chisholm, I think is how you say it. So he does a pretty good job of kind of changing up his style for a few of the stories. It's really centered around like music and this opening of this other dimension through music. And this main character, I think, starting to get the sense of they've lived many lives, and those lives are triggered by certain songs and certain genres.
Okay, that's
so it gives us a couple of times where let's see if I can find a good example where there's a song that'll come up and the style will change, and then it'll tell you a little bit of history of that particular song. So as far as I can tell, it's all based on genres that we would know, but I don't think any of these actual musicians exist. Like, you know, there's very clearly like an Elvis, but it's not Elvis. So it's this very other world. They don't want to get into the case of talking about actual artists, I guess.
Copyrights and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, would you get that? And that was my question, I guess, with it. Like, would you get into copyright? Like, if you used if you referenced particular musicians, would that be an issue, do you think? I guess because they're also reciting some lyrics in here as well, too. So maybe that's the area they'd get in trouble with.
Yeah, I think it's the
so through this first issue, she kind of comes to the realization that maybe she's more than she thinks she is. And then it's illustrated here by this. I didn't mind it. It sort of had elements of, what the heck was what was the one called where she commits suicide at the beginning of it that we were all raving about? What the heck was that one called? Shit. I'm Carmen, the story Carmen. It sort of felt like there was elements of Carmen in with this one. And then we get the second issue and we have a different character on the cover of that second issue. So I don't know if that's someone else in this woman's reality or if now we're jumping through time. So I might give the second one a chance. I wasn't totally sold on it, but the art was really nice though. I thought it was pretty well done in that regard, but I don't know if that's enough to kind of have me come back. It was just such a light week. I wanted to try something else out. What better place to start than in issue number 1? I read this first volume of Kowloon Generic Romance, which honestly, I struggled through the first half of it. It wasn't interesting. It was basically this office romance that was blossoming. I heard about this one on that YouTube channel where she's an architect and she talks about Kowloon. It's a real city, and that there was a book. This comic was kind of based. It centered on this city in China. So there's elements that are really interesting. The city itself is kind of a character, but the rest of it was a little too. It was a little dry for me. It was a little too like this girl and this guy, and he's kind of a jerk to her, but she still really is attracted to him anyway. And then the last couple of chapters is where it really actually picked up. She's starting to understand like you're getting pictures like this, for example, you know what I mean? Like where like
Ooh, saucy.
there's one of the pages, right? So I'm kind of like, what the fuck am I reading here? But honestly, the last bit is what got me. So this guy is asleep in their office because they work together as real estate agents in this Kowloon city, and she goes to wake him up, and he gets all groggy and ends up kissing her. Dun dun dun. And that kind of sparks this. He says, "Oh, you remind me of someone else." There's a couple of moments where he says that to her, and they go and share this meal at this restaurant, which all of a sudden she can't find. But after she kisses him, she can find this place again. She's found this picture in his desk that is of them. And it turns out that it's them at their engagement party. And that photo was taken in this restaurant, but she has no memory of it. So she sits in the restaurant. And then the next page, we get this where it's actually a destroyed restaurant. So is that her imagination? Is that something? It gives you this impression that there's something maybe more going on, because we do see the picture and it is actually her and it is their engagement, but she has zero memory of it. So is there some sort of trauma that's gone on there? So that actually made it interesting enough that I wouldn't mind seeing what happens in book 2. It feels like there's a little more kind of opening up now at the end of this first book. So it wasn't horrible. It wasn't really my thing. I gave it a shot because of what they said about it on that YouTube channel. It sounded interesting enough. And then I'll just kind of show you these last couple. Frankenstein number 3. Meh, it's okay. Nothing to write home about. It's just okay. And I finally read The Hammer. So this is 4-Color Apocalypse, Ryan Carey. He's starting to publish comics from people. So this is his first publication from Daria Foruhar. And it was pretty damn good, I gotta say. I think one of his ideas with this publishing is trying to work with people who either haven't done comics before or it's their very first attempts at it. So I don't know if this is her very first comic, but it's pretty damn good if it is. I thought it was a decent story of this. It's kind of I'm assuming that it's all autobiographical, and she's got these. I don't remember exactly how she describes it herself, but there's this reoccurring element of this page we see about 3 or 4 times throughout the book, where she's really focused on eating and getting food from this machine. And vending machines piss me off. You can only buy one at a time, and how that puts her in this spiral of just kind of replaying things over and over again till she can't hear anything but this banging in her head. And she talks about some mythology here with Athena. The hammer fell and out dropped Athena, goddess of war and wisdom, wearing the armor her mother gave her. So she goes into that about how she feels like has this banging going on in her head that she has difficulty kind of suppressing at times, and it kind of invades her personal life. So really cool little book, and great to see Ryan kind of coming out and picking up something, like contributing in some way. And then the last one, this one will be good for you, Rasa, because this is a UK artist, Ethan Llewellyn, doing a comic called Naff. And this is issue number 3, and looking so much like Daniel Clowes. Yes. And even with some of the stories, it's so Daniel Clowes that honestly, it kind of distracted from it for me. There's some funny stuff in here, but some of the stuff that he also recreates from that early Clowes era is kind of what he calls sados, which are making fun of kind of a personality type. And that sort of stuff, I find, for me personally, is the stuff that doesn't age as well from the 90s era of comics. As much as I love Clowes, I think he's a far better storyteller and cartoonist now. And he was always really goddamn good, but I'm glad that he kind of moved past some of that stuff, because it really sends this sense of where you're sort of, not that people shouldn't be made fun of, I'm not saying that at all. It just really has this taste that I think doesn't translate to now. Here's another Sados here as well too. It really has this kind of I don't know, petty kind of making fun of people thing that I just don't know if that translates so well anymore. It's kind of, it's been done already. What's the point of it? So that kind of stuff kind of turned me off of the book. But his art is so good, and he doesn't kind of overproduce it where he deals with the blacks digitally afterwards. Like there's a lot of moments here where you can see, I don't know if it's going to show up, but around that panel, there's parts where you can see the different colors or the different markers that he's using to block in those blacks. And then same with even the characters themselves. It almost feels like you can feel the pencil lines on there. I'm assuming that's a zipatone. That's a texture of a zipatone that he's using for that stuff. So he's using a lot of real world techniques to do his art. And he has a positive write-up on the back from Daniel Clowes and from Simon Hanselman. So I've seen him. I've seen this Ethan Llewellyn on Manga Chat, which is Hanselman's YouTube channel with not Josh Simmons, but what the heck is the other guy's name? Josh something, I think. I'm blanking on his name right now, of course. But so it wasn't horrible. It just at moments it felt way too much like Clowes, where it was like, well, if I want to read Daniel Clowes, I'll read Daniel Clowes. He's a younger artist, and he does have some of his own thing going on, but there is just a little too much Pettinger. Thank you very much for Jarelli. Pettinger, Josh Pettinger.
Yeah, he's...
Yeah, so it just felt like there was a little too much of that for me, where I just went through it and enjoyed it enough, but it was expensive to get it to me from the UK. I wanted to give it a shot because I've seen his art online, and it really, I follow him on Instagram as well too.
So you went to his the shop and you got
Yeah,
it?
I ordered straight from him. Yeah, I got it straight from him because I think number 3 is the only one that's out. I don't know if it's sold out or what the deal is.
Yeah, he doesn't have only number 3. There's 2 before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's only...
Yeah, and I think 1 and 2 are sold out a long time ago.
On Instagram, he's Bristol based, so it's close-ish where I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in south of the England.
Okay, yeah.
Bristol is kind of like wants to be a poor version of London.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
But it has its own kind of like a very much character. It has really good comic book shops, to be honest. In
do they really? Yeah.
One of the ones, like Green 1975, I found in Bristol comic book shop.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 of them basically, and one of them has been there forever. That's where I bought that. But they don't always have what I want, kind of thing. It's like very much, like if you have not established your conversations with the comic book people, you're kind of not going to get the whole picture. But I heard really good things about that shop. And there's one who sells, like those comic book shop, the best ones, which you want to find a deal, where you have to basically, it looks disgusting, but it's actually quite fun. Because the books are everywhere, and then you go look for search, and you can find, if you're going to look, you can find lots of kind of like back issues, which wouldn't cost you a fortune, basically. But I don't know if it exists because I haven't been in Bristol for a long time. Because it's just, it's as I say, it's it's on the west side of the country, and it's very busy all the time. It's like impossible, like traffic mayhem, to be honest. Every single time you go that.
How long does it take you to drive there on a good day?
The Americans and Canadian distances, you will be like, oh, so it's just like one evening and you can go pop in. But for us, we always like complain. What? No way. Oh yeah, 1 hour 15 minutes.
Yeah, and that's on a good day, I imagine, right? Like generally, it's probably a couple of hours each way.
Yeah, it takes usually. If you hit that unrelenting traffic, then you usually takes about 2 to 3, not 2 hours max. That's for sure. I don't think you can.
Well, it was like when we lived in Ontario, it was the same thing. Like we were in Kitchener-Waterloo, which on paper is about an hour outside of Toronto, but it's like I never did that trip one way in an hour, never. And the worst of it was coming back and being like literally 3 hours, where 2 of those hours we are basically in a parking lot. And it's like, so same kind of idea of like, sure, it's 1 hour away, but I'm not going to put up with that, because I mean, I would go into Toronto because I was in school, but on those other times, it's like, do you want to go into Toronto today? Fuck no, because I don't want to be on the goddamn highway for that length of time, because you just don't know what it's going to be like, right? So,
They have a very nice music scene in Bristol.
uh-huh.
So they have your like indie kind of like unestablished musicians there. They have great venues there. Most of like yeah, it's like if you grow up there, I presume you would enjoy it. They have like very multicultural scene as well. It's like I said, like a small version of London. To be honest, it does feel
Yeah.
like it. Doesn't mean it's like it's quite grubby, like
Yeah.
like not I I enjoyed going there, but I always felt like I want to leave as soon as I can, not because of it just looks, like there's ups and downs on the city. Sometimes it goes in the boom, and they have this established shopping center, which everybody flocks there, and they have like lots of choices, which is the least thing I want to do. So you go off, you want to go off into like smaller places, like, and they have those kind of like, London has this Camden Town scenes, which are basically your music scene and the off the cuff people like dressed all over the, like they don't care what you feel about them, like they can dress whatever the hell they want to, because it's more relaxed atmosphere to a point, and becomes a bit more grubby and more, dangerous in some sort of ways, let's say this way. So I wouldn't want to be basically end up in some areas of Bristol at night, let's say this way.
Yeah, right.
But if I would be young, no problem. I used to do that.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like scratching my head, like, how did I survive this without actually extra accident wouldn't happen? Because I used to end up on the streets in London from 2 o'clock in the morning till 5, wandering by myself, which isn't the place you should do. But lucky enough, like with stupid luck of mine, I guess I survived many things.
Well, and I think that when you live in a city like that, you start building that radar too, I think, to some degree, right? Like you kind of get this sixth sense about stuff, But yeah, you're right. Anything could have still happened regardless of that. Yeah.
Most of the time I used to be plastered, because then because I used to go clubs, and then you end up basically in the middle of nowhere, and the only
looking
thing
for trouble.
No, you want to go home, but then you end up
You're like Yellowstone. You were looking for a bar fight, going around pushing people. I can picture it right now.
You take the night bus and you end up in the wrong bus because you drunk and you didn't see the right number. And then you go end up in the middle of nowhere, some off the cuff, like some zone of London where you don't even know where you are. And don't forget, the mobile phones were just starting in that kind of thing. Not like, I mean, they were, but not as signal strength and all that stuff, like not established. Not everybody was, like, and I was like, my sister used to like, I wake up in the morning and I'm there, like, she opens the door to go to work, and I'm like, about to knock for her to open the door for me. It's like, what if she's like, what is going on? And I was like, not talking, just like plumped on the floor. And then 2 hours later, I used to go to study English. I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Some crazy stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to anybody to no, not now. Now it's even worse. I mean, 20 years ago, London wasn't what it is now.
Right.
20 years ago, London was crazy to a point. Of course, you like say Sixth Sense and stuff, but not as what it would be now. Now it's crazy. Now you wouldn't want to. I mean, the phone snatching, the knife welding stuff, like the horror stories you hear on that sense. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's unfortunately gaining ground here, like people with machetes wandering around the university campus the other day. At the end of our street, a couple got stabbed on the bus, like just, a block away from our house kind of thing. Like the knife crime is starting to be on the rise here in the city, which is a little, I mean, gun violence is horrible. Absolutely it is. There's something extra intense about knife violence, because you're right up by a motherfucker to stab someone. Like you're looking these guys in the eyes. To me, that's a different thing that's tweaking in your brain, to be that close to somebody to stab them. You know what I mean? Or wielding this machete. Like, what in God's name is going on that you feel you need a machete? Like, Jesus, that's something intense.
So the London was knife issue, now the machete issue. So they're
Yeah.
upgrading. They are going extra mile. And
Yeah.
it's not only London now. We hear Edinburgh chopped heads, find the chopped heads in the high streets,
Mhm. Yeah.
which you don't usually hear that kind of thing on the news. Not
Yeah.
everyone wants to plaster that, but there's, like, of course, doesn't help with the social media. But when you see that kind of like, like you see the pictures where you usually see on a detective show, and you're like, that's not detective.
Yeah.
You're
That's not a
actually
show. Yeah.
looking at,
Right.
like you're watching something for sure what's happening.
Hmm.
And you're like, and then they're saying like it gets to like restaurants. Like apparently one guy went, oh, he had something, I think, and like they saying whatever whatever they wanted to disclose an information, saying that he was so high that he picked up the machete, whatever he had at home, and went on a wielding kind of spree in the most busiest places ever, because then you can go in the middle of nowhere, open it, and like take that out and start moving it around, and then lots of people around you can get completely hurt and die,
Hmm.
which is it's absolutely ridiculous. And it happens so many times, and gangs are huge in London.
Hmm.
You live in one area, you find kind of people kind of like in the way tells you,
Yeah.
or you find out from newspapers who and what and how they look, and you start wandering in a different location,
Yeah.
because the gang is related in that area, and
Well, I
most of
mean,
them
and yeah.
are
Yeah.
teenagers, or like they
Yeah.
are like
Absolutely.
14, like what, the one who got in trouble, he was what, 11. He
Hmm.
killed somebody, 11 years old.
I mean, yeah, that's what I was talking about before with you, like watching this because I'm a big fan of like grime music from the
Yeah,
UK, and now
yeah,
with
yeah,
this newer like stuff that they call drill or whatever, like it's
yeah,
these young kids that are talking about these acts, these criminal acts and
yeah,
murders and stuff that
yeah,
they claim they've been involved with. Obviously, there's a level of storytelling to any sort of genre like this, but I mean, it's that idea of this,
yeah,
again, there's always been this kind of violence, but yeah, it gets notches up. And like I said, like gun violence is horrible and terrifying, and the randomness of gun violence is, I think, the scariest thing about it for sure, because there's
yeah,
this element of driving by and shooting at people, you
yeah,
miss it, and then you're nailing these targets that are around you. Knife violence has that different kind of intensity element to it for me, that it seems to be ratcheting it up. We've always been a violent city. Winnipeg has always been a violent city, but it's different these days than what it has been for sure.
it's like psychologically, I mean, you're already unstable when it comes to any violence, but then you are actually having somebody, like you say, using it right in front of you without not being afraid of it. And it
Hmm.
doesn't, yeah, and like in here, you always establish you don't say anything to the teenagers, because they can sue your parents and then blah blah blah, and you're in trouble, in biggest trouble in your life. But
Hmm.
in that kind of sense, you can't anymore open your mouth as an adult anymore to protect yourself, because
Hmm.
it's a child, like, and that kind of part of it becomes, where do you draw a line? Where is the protection part? Like, how can you say something to a teenager these days, not knowing that the teenager will come back to you with something as that, as a, because this is
Hmm.
how they establishing like, it's just kind of crazy, it's
Yeah, it's
double
crazy.
guess. Like we had like in this small village, some kids who were like 12, 11 start knocking on my no, but punching my main door.
Mm.
Yeah, and there was about a group of 10 of them, not one, not two. So somebody
Hmm.
dared them to do that, so we went and bashed it. Yeah, I opened the door, and I can clearly see them. And my husband's like, first thing he does, like, don't even go, because I would
Yeah,
charge,
close
because
the
that's
door.
my
Yeah, exactly.
protect.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, what
Yeah.
the, like, can I scream my head off? But
Yeah.
then the one thing I did, I more scared my husband and my son than I scared those little
Yeah. Yeah.
creeps.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's just like
Yeah.
small little village, which everybody's supposed to know each other. So that's kind of like, you kind of double guess now yourself as an adult now. Can you say any word towards those? Because
Yeah.
they're grouping, they're not one or two. They're establishing themselves in a group where if you
Hmm.
end up being in the middle of it, surely something's going to happen to you,
But honestly, even if it's one-on-one, it's still a thing. Like at one of the
Yeah.
stages of the pandemic, I remember going with Lillian to the 7-Eleven down by our house, and it was one guy, and getting into this thing with this one guy where
Yeah.
it was intense. Like it
Mm,
ratcheted up really quickly, and I stepped closer to him,
mm,
and as he was kind of ratcheting it up, and he said he actually is the one that said, like, is that your daughter behind you? Good, because I'm gonna fucking beat the shit out of you in front of your fucking daughter. And it sort of cued me into my surroundings. And then all I hear is Lillian just crying behind me and
yeah.
terrified, obviously. And
Yeah.
it's like, what the hell? So being in that moment too
Yeah.
of like how easy it is sometimes, to get kind of ratcheted up with people, but
Yeah.
then kind of like that snapping in. And obviously we walked away, and obviously nothing happened, because what the hell would you be thinking doing that in front of your children, period, regardless of what the outcome is?
Yeah.
Me beating him up or getting beaten up, neither of those is an acceptable outcome to put your child through that, right? But it's like the fact that he was willing to go to that level pretty quickly when it was a very basic bullshit misunderstanding. The fact of getting at that level so quickly was like, wow, it's different. It's different out there. People are, and obviously at that time, that's the pandemic that's straining on people as well as everything else too, right? So there was a lot of different factors in going through this individual's head, I imagine. But it was really like, dude, it's crazy out there. Because again, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. I don't know if
Mm,
this guy's got something he's gonna pull on me. I don't
yeah.
know shit, right? So,
But these
you
days
know,
you don't. Now you can establish because it doesn't matter what age you are anymore.
yeah.
Because you never, confrontate. I mean, I've got into many confrontation because of my own, let's say, stupidity in order to protect myself and the right to do so. But in the environment where I've never been, like where people know or haven't enough people surround myself with, but I was already in kind of like protecting myself. But these days, I
Hmm.
don't know if I will. You can do that. Like you have to like you have to be the conscious one at the end of the day. You have to be the one be able to tell your brain you can't
Yeah,
react. You have to walk
it's hard,
away.
man.
But
It
then,
was hard to walk out of that moment. I gotta say,
yeah,
like, it was really hard. It took me a few seconds longer than it should have,
yeah,
like it took me longer than it should have to just de-escalate and just walk away. It was
yeah.
difficult.
Because the
Yeah.
thing is, it's a lot to ask for somebody not to react when somebody's basically
Yeah.
literally attacking you. And if
Yeah.
you and then you have, it doesn't matter which attack we're talking about. It can be verbal is enough because it will rattle you. And if you have your child next to you, it's 100 times more.
Yeah.
But then you have to realize a protection first,
Yeah. Exactly.
or because your brain is kind of like going into places where you don't really want it to be because somebody else made you to be in that place,
Hmm.
and then say to yourself, no, fine, you have to go and walk away.
Yeah.
It's not
Well, and
everybody
even
can
when
do
we drove
that.
away, like, because obviously that ended from our side, it ended the interaction. Like, I didn't acknowledge him after that. But even
Yeah.
as we were driving away, like, we'd done everything we needed to inside. We got in our car and drove away. He was still around and just cursing, like, just really like he was
Yeah.
desperate for an
Yeah.
altercation. It seemed like he was desperate for it. And we
Yeah.
just obviously we drove away and nothing happened. Everybody was fine. Like, we didn't do shit.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I may be an idiot, but I'm not stupid, So,
But
yeah.
that's the thing. But these days it's really hard for you because I walk past now, especially in the darker, like winter times, it's much more difficult to be feel okay, even the small village, because I realize how these kids are these days. They're not
Hmm.
afraid. They will come at you. Doesn't matter how old. There's no there's no, it's like for me, I used to see my age person. I used to be afraid because you never know, because they're stronger. I knew. Second
Right.
of all, probably I am not in the, like not in the right position, just to confront them and be like a dickhead, because you do that when you are teenagers. But these time kids, doesn't matter, like they really like 10, 11, and they already have that look,
Yeah.
that crazy look. And you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
shit, you don't even know what's all about. In a decade ago you were just born and you already have that crazy look. What's going to happen in another 5?
Yeah.
Because they look at you like, I'm gonna fuck you, I'm gonna fuck you up,
Yeah.
that kind of look.
Yeah.
And this is only passing by.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? You're passing by the kid, and you clearly see he has problem with you just because you're an adult.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, how old are you? How can you even have that? You look here. What made you feel like that you need to have, like, be happy, be a, like I used to be goofy.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that speaks to their environment though, right? Like that's a whole
Yeah,
other
probably. But
arm, right?
what I'm trying to say is we're living in a village, a small place
Yeah.
where everybody supposedly knows, but they are to a point, these kids who live around, or their parents are like that, and this is just transformation with
Yeah.
to basically comes to your child, and they don't
Kids
care.
learn shit, right? Yeah. They learn it from
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's just like scary. So what kind of parents you have?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're having that crazy look when you're just that age. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I remember you being stupid hormonal teenager, which is like a 16, 17, then you go mad, like your eyes go like absolutely glazed up if you're angry because your hormones are like extra.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
stupid extra, like even more
Yeah.
stupid kind of you think because the hormones manipulate you to a point of no return and you don't have experience. But when you're 11 and you have that crazy look, like what the
Mm-hmm.
hell? What's
Mm-hmm.
wrong with you? What is really wrong with you? Because
Yeah, totally.
I was walking past them, and there's four of them kind of walking. I was walking my son back to school to from school home,
Mm-hmm.
and we were passing by, and they were already having the look. I was like, "Excuse me," I was like, "What is going on here?"
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I've never experienced it like this young, but I guess we are going backwards and going crazy. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a bit scary.
Yeah. It's wild. And I second Sean Riaz. These horrible people need to read more, especially comics. We'd all be
Yeah.
better off. Yeah, and that's why we do it. So on that note,
Cheerios.
let's say good night. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us.
Yes.
It was good to see you all, Sean and Forgerelli, and of course Damien, Sleepy Reader.
And
Off
off
my
my shelf.
shelves. Thank you very much for coming back and hanging out with us. Good to see you all in the chat. Donald Rex, shout out to Donald Rex as well. He was on Garage Geek's channel. I think it was this week at some point, earlier this week. I don't remember what day it was, but talking to Garage Geek about comics. They bought a stack of romance comics together. They split it. Donald found a good lot on eBay, so they split the cost, which was nice.
Nice.
Next week we'll hopefully talk to you next weekend, everybody.
Yeah. If nothing changes.
Yeah. Laters.
All right. Cheers.
Take it easy.